Hello and welcome to Legal Bites. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legal Bites merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Boom, let's get into it. So we are in fact back in the courtroom and probably about to start in just a sec. I guess I'll unmute it now. Okay, well, still not much happening though. Hope you guys had a good break. Maybe you were able to get up, stretch your legs, and take care of some stuff. I was able to have my dinner finally and brew some wonderful tea that Mrs. Hoglaw turned me on to when I visited. So credit to Mrs. Hoglaw for starting a new growing tea obsession, and B, starting a new plant obsession. I now have my own herb garden. I'm propagating plants. It's maybe a little bit, maybe I'm a little bit too excited about it, but Holmes is very excited about all the plants that I've got. He is eating a lot of plants that are in our living room and kitchen, especially. Right. Don't worry, they're all pet safe.
We're ready.
All right, here we go. And also Kim Farnham, welcome to Bite Club. I think you've been in Bite Club before, so if that's the case, welcome back. I'm happy to have you here, and I hope that you, and there's a number of new folks today. I hope you guys can make it for, well, if we have it this Friday, in Flux. Normally on Fridays we have at 10 a.m. East Coast time, we have a members only live stream just to hang out and chat and talk about whatever. If this trial is still going on at that hour, I'll probably shift it around. So we'll see. But yeah. Danny Wallace wants to know, what did you have for dinner? I had a taco bowl, basically, kind of I don't know, burrito bowl, taco bowl. Slow cooked some chicken today in a slow cooker. Threw in some black beans, some rice, tomatoes, cilantro, all kinds of spicy hot sauces and stuff. It was good. I liked it. Derek Boodle. I don't think Kurt was insulted by your comment. I think if he appeared that way, I think he was joking. I don't know if he's got time to come back. Something tells me he'll probably come back at some point this afternoon.
Thank you and good afternoon. Mr. Sanderson, would you please retake the witness stand?
Crab salad sounds really good.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So because we have Deer Valley people lined up, I would like to continue my questioning of Mr. Sanderson, but at a different time.
Very good. Okay. So who's the next witness?
Eric Christensen.
Okay.
Mr. Christensen. If you could come right up here, sir.
Yeah, the question, why is Owens wearing a mask? He said that he feels like he's coming down with something.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in the case now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, sir. Just right around here, and there's the chair. and the left hand armrest has been acting up again.
I'm sorry, I have a cold.
Sir, one more thing. Would you please state your full name and spell all the words?
Middle name also?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Eric Paul Christensen, ERICPAULCHRISTIANSEN.
This is going to be some interesting testimony.
Let's introduce yourself. What city do you live in?
I live in Camas.
Okay. And married, kids?
I have 2 children. They're both in their 30s. I have 2 grandchildren.
And skiing has been a big part of your life. Is that fair?
It has been. I've been a ski instructor for 44 years, 39 of those at Deer Valley.
And I can think of what a ski instructor is, but just comment a little further on that, would you? What is a ski instructor?
Once I came to Deer Valley, I went through both of my levels of certification. There's 3 now, but they've added one on the front end. But we're members of the Professional Ski Instructors of America. We happen to be in the Intermountain Division. I'm certified to teach all levels, from young kids all the way through adults, from never evers, never been on skis, through experts.
Okay. I talked to your wife. She's been in the ski industry 50 years too.
She actually receives her 50-year, she just received her 50-year level 3 pin, yes. But during that time, she spent 32 years as a patroller at Park City Mountain Resort. She was a weekend patroller.
You mentioned level 3. Is 3 good?
Yes, it used to be called associate and full, and then they changed it. They added a bronze pin at the front end, and so it went level 1, level 2, level 3, and so the former full certified is now called level 3 certified.
Sir, I'm going to ask James to show you a 20-second animation. May I do that, Your Honor?
Will you approach the bench?
Sure.
Probably want to see, what does this look like? What is the purpose? Where are you going to start and stop it? Or if they already talked about that previously, just trying to clarify, this is where this is where we need to clarify all those things and confirm. So yeah, sorry about the lag in the video feed here. I think it probably, I know that's been in the chat. Some people had some questions about that. It's not from Court TV. It's not from Long Crime. It's either from my internet or it's from StreamYard, or maybe some combination of the two, like some sort of a limitation in like StreamYard's ability to take the feed from my internet and push it out to YouTube. My instinct is it's probably like my internet. Oh, and Kurt is in the chat. Hey, Kurt, saying that he's in the gym now, but he'll join us later. That sounds good. Get it, dude. Get those reps. So, and also, by the way, thank you as always to the mods that are in the chat for always helping to guide conversation in a way that is productive and also meaningful, and that everybody can feel like they can express themselves, but in a way that's not gonna be too upsetting, I should say. That is respectful is really what's important. So, yeah, the question of why is Terry no longer testifying? Is he done? He's not done. The issue here was defense counsel said that because of how long plaintiff's case in chief has gone on, they've had to reshuffle the witnesses that they're calling and figure out who can come when. And so because of that, like they're worried about having to cancel some of these witnesses. I think he said that they already have canceled some witnesses. And so, I mean, we obviously don't want to see that, right? Like regardless of how you feel about, who should be winning right now or who you think should win at the end. You want everybody to be able to put on the witnesses that they want to put on for their case, right? Like we want the process to be as fair as possible. So basically that's why they cut off the rest of Terry Sanderson's testimony for today, but they will be picking it up later, which I don't, based on how this trial has gone so far, I don't particularly anticipate that going very smoothly with bringing up Terry Sanderson again. There's going to be probably some redundancy issues in the cross-examination. I don't know. Also the jury then has to like close their brain on that conversation and then pick it up later. It's just, I don't like it. I don't like seeing testimony be broken up like that in that fashion. Also, as far as like trial procedure is concerned, it's kind of weird because at the end of the plaintiff's case in chief, that's when the defense has one of their first opportunities at the trial, because there's multiple opportunities in pre-litigation or pre-trial litigation. But that's the first opportunity at trial, really, to try to get the case dismissed.
Objection overruled?
Well, I'm holding it in abeyance right now until you show the witness the animation.
So may James approach the witness?
So it's weird because they're already going into their case in chief now before they would be making that motion to the court to dismiss the case after plaintiff's case. I don't know. It's this weird overlapping. I don't like it.
And James is going to run a 20-second animation for you.
Okay.
For the record, this is the number 6
True.
of the animations.
Yeah,
There's
Ellen,
no
not Sarah
sound.
Lee. That's when,
Please
so
tell me when it's over.
direct, yes, basically yes.
reviewed that?
That would be,
Yes.
you're asking the judge to
Alright.
make a
Okay.
determination
Plaintiff's counsel go back. Will that help?
without
you
the
explain
jury
your
seeing it,
testimony
which
to
a
the
directed
jury?
verdict is also.
Yes, it will.
You can have different names
Will it
depending
help
on which
explain
court
the
you're in,
position of the parties at the time of the accident?
different jurisdictions,
Yes.
but yeah.
Does it help explain your recollections of the events?
Yes, it does.
Is it substantially similar to your recollection of the events on the date in question?
Yes, it
This is
is.
the Deer Valley
So,
report.
Your Honor, I move to publish this animation to the jury as a demonstrative exhibit.
Oh, that's right. The
Uh,
demonstration.
Plaintiff objects. The demonstrative is not illustrative of the
Basic objection.
witness's viewpoint. And if you wouldn't mind, Your Honor, I'd like to have another sidebar.
Ooh. Michael, thank you for this. Thank you for this reminder. Let me do that right now. In case I start talking over it. Oh no, Court TV doesn't have it available. Okay, let me find Law and Crime then. Or one of the other ones. Okay. One sec.
Consider them to the extent that
He's
they
giving an
correctly
instruction on the
reflect
demonstrative
the
to the jury.
evidence.
This isn't evidence. This is to help them understand the evidence, basically.
Let's play the animation and then we're going to go back and talk about it. Is this from your viewpoint?
This one would be from my viewpoint, yes.
And let's be clear, this is not a GoPro video.
No.
This is a creation. It's not a actual video, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So this is from,
Now I can
if
read
you had a camera on your forehead at the time, does this sort of illustrate your testimony?
It will.
It's been admitted.
Wax Foundation.
Overruled. Go
Okay,
ahead.
let's play the video.
That's pretty good animation, I'm not going to lie. Sound catches cushions his attention.
All right, we're going to take this kind of piece
Okay.
by piece. Let's go to the very beginning. Do you know the Bandana Run?
Very well.
How many times have you skied that?
Well, I've been at Deer Valley for 40 years, actually. I would say that the Bandana Run has been there for about 30 of those, and it is the only access to go directly from Flagstaff Mountain to the Empire area.
And do you recognize this, for instance, this little cabin there on the left?
Oh, yes.
What is it, a private home?
It's a private home.
Do you recognize those? And I have a little laser here, if I'm doing this right. Do you see those buckets right there?
Yeah, those are green foam tubes that cover up the snowmaking. There's water and air, or water and electric, depending on what type of system they have.
And does that provide some landmark in where this collision occurred?
It does.
Okay. Was it essentially across from them?
What do you mean?
Where the collision occurred, was that sort of across from the snow equipment?
It would be in that general area, yes.
Okay. And then there's some people here. So who's the orange, the guy in the orange?
That would represent Moses.
All right. So let's back up. Were you
Moses
hired
and
by
her son.
Ms. Paltrow to help Moses that day?
Yes.
And had you helped him before?
This was the third time I had skied with him, twice in the previous year, and then this trip on this year.
Would you lie for Gwyneth today?
No.
Are you testifying truthfully today?
Yes, I am.
By the way, you were called a bully this morning. Have you ever bullied a guest at Deer Valley?
Deer Valley takes their guests very seriously, and if an instructor is has a confrontation with a guest, we don't last. We are supposed to be polite to everyone, and I was polite to Mr. Sanderson that day.
And have you been polite to every guest in 40 years?
I've never had a reason not to be.
So, yes. Were you
Yes.
a bully to Mr. Sanders?
No.
I was not.
He's going to say no.
Is that a ridiculous claim?
I feel that it is, yes.
And you were personally named in this very lawsuit.
Your Honor.
Sustained as to relevance.
Yeah.
Goes to credibility, I believe.
Move to
Your Honor.
strike, Your Honor.
I'll follow your order.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not exactly
There's been an
relevant.
allegation just this morning that you stood by and yelled at an unconscious man for 2 or more minutes. Did you?
Leading.
I'm asking to comment on it.
It's a prefatory statement. It's fine. Overruled.
Did you do that?
I did not. No one was ever unconscious during that period of time. Where do you want me to start?
Yes, it's a big story. Okay.
Okay.
Who are these two people on the animation?
Those would represent Apple and also Carrie Oakes, another instructor.
All right. So they were a little head. Is that fair?
They were in the proximity. I can't tell you for sure exactly where they were, but we were all in the same proximity.
And do you actually recognizing this as an animation, but does it illustrate well the geography of the actual run?
It does.
Lucky.
Do you know
Thank so
anything
much
about
for
like a
the 10 Legal Bites
special
memberships.
photographer going up and actually
kind of you, so
contouring
generous.
the run?
To everyone who
Well,
received
it
one,
is
welcome to my club.
what I've been told. It is an actual photograph of the run. So
And this was a clear day,
it was.
and that's. Do you know whether this was the actual month and day, not the year, of the actual incident itself? Like this is literally the day, like February 26th.
Right. I was told that the other day.
Okay, you don't personally know that.
No.
Okay. All right. The title of this image is Christensen's POV, point of view. And let's run it. And then James, I'll ask you to stop at some point. Okay, let's stop. Who is that?
That would represent Mr. Sanderson.
All right. Why is it you would look up to see someone like Mr. Sanderson?
Now, when you're working with students, especially if they're children, you're always looking around. It's very much like driving. You're aware of everything around you. The one thing this animation does not show is I actually watched him make several turns down, and that's what caught my eye. And so Mr. Sanderson has some very strong skiing skills because he was skiing edge to edge, rolling his skis. An intermediate skier skids much more, but he was skiing edge to edge, and he was making what we would refer to as GS, giant slalom turns, which basically means that they're round and large and fairly fast.
Okay. And comment on Moses's ability.
Moses, I think it was maybe his fourth time. He went to Big Bear one day, from what my understanding, and then he had skied a few days with me on one trip,
I know, Big
a
Bear.
couple of days on a second trip, and this was his first day of this trip. So he did not have a lot of experience. He was 9 years old, and so he was still in a wedge, and so we were skiing very slow. We were skiing on the side of the run.
And comment on Gwyneth's skill level.
Gwyneth is a strong intermediate skier, and she was skiing skiers right while we were on skiers left. And one of the things that's interesting is that she was making short radius turns. Now, when we teach people how to be safe, one of the things that we do is we try to teach them to ski not right down the middle of the run, because that's where all the traffic is, but if they can ski a shorter radius turn on the side, that means they're in a narrower corridor. It also means that they are out of the line of traffic, and uphill skiers who are faster can watch and anticipate them and miss them. And that's what she was doing. She was actually skiing short radius turns on the skier's right next to the edge.
I have to jump beyond your background. So when it's not ski season, what do you do for a living?
I also teach at the Winter Sports School. It's a high school that was set up for winter athletes.
Huh.
And so we start in April
For Olympians.
and about the second week of April, and then graduation will be the week before Thanksgiving. And so the students get an academic education, but they also get 5 months off during the winter to work on their sport.
That's
I think I
interesting.
mentioned that your wife is a level 3 instructor. Are you a level 3 instructor?
Yes, I am.
And is that the highest level?
It is.
And highest means most advanced.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Let's run the video just a little bit more. Okay, let's stop. Who is now? Say again who all these people are, would you? Who's that on the far end?
On the far end, that would be Miss Paltrow.
Okay, and let's go a little further. Now, let's stop.
Okay.
All right. Craig Ramon said when he heard a sound, he turned. Is that what you did?
Well, of course, when I heard a scream, that's when I looked back.
He's claimed to be the only eyewitness who essentially heard and turned, but you also heard and turned. Is that right?
That is correct.
And was Ramon immediately on the scene?
He was not. What happened was I had been watching Mr. Sanderson ski down, and because I was aware of my students on that side, but as soon as he passed us, I looked back at Moses, and it was mere moments after that that we heard the scream.
All right. So whenever you say a pronoun like he,
Okay,
I'm
Mr.
going to
Sanderson.
actually ask you to clarify who.
Sorry about that.
All right. So just say that last sentence again, would you, with using the name?
Okay, so Mr. Sanderson was skiing down, making fairly large turns, and he had accumulated a fair amount of speed. I watched him while I was watching my kids. I was paying attention to both. And as soon as he passed us, and I wasn't concerned with him hitting us, then I turned back towards Moses. But at that point, he was very close to Miss Paltrow. And I looked away. I did not actually see the collision, but I heard her scream. And that's when I looked up.
But Ramon was not on the scene for how many seconds?
I would say at least 45 seconds. I mean, Miss Paltrow was already up on her feet. We were getting Mr. Sanderson up on his feet. He was very late to the scene.
Okay.
I would just assume that he was not as fast a skier as Mr. Sanderson was.
All right. So let's be clear. Did you literally see the moment of impact?
I did not.
All right. Did you hear and turn?
I did hear, and I turned, and by that time they're already moving on the ground.
And who's on top?
Miss Paltrow is on top.
All right. And let's finish running the video if you don't mind. So is this you skiing over to them?
It is.
Is this more or less what you saw?
Pretty much. They were below me. So the first thing I did was I turned to Carrie and I said, asked her to take Moses. And I said, I'm going to go over to see what happened. And at that point, I traversed across. They were below me. And so I didn't have to skate or anything. I just.
Did you hear Miss Paltrow say anything?
When I got there.
Paltrow, like a pal.
Yeah, okay. When I got to the scene, she was talking and a little bit upset. They were both talking. The first thing I did was I took off my skis and I moved around on would have been the right-hand side. And they both had their heads uphill. Both sets of skis were still on both she and Mr. Sanderson. And their skis were below them. And they were basically lying pretty much on their backs.
On their
Okay.
backs.
And
That's not what
I
Sanderson
think
said.
Ramon said that their heads were downhill. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree.
And you even smiled. And why did you smile?
Well, for one thing, he wasn't there at that time. But no, they were, I don't know how to describe it with my arms, but, they were on the slope and she was underneath and he was on top of her.
And Ramon said that Mr. Sanderson was a spread eagle pointing downhill. Did you observe that?
I never observed that.
You would have remembered that, wouldn't you have?
Well, of course.
Okay. And then when you first came over, then I heard you say Gwyneth was upset.
Yes.
Is that the first thing you heard out of their mouths?
It's been long enough. Excuse me. It's been long enough ago that I can't give you, an exact, play-by-play of who said what when. I do know certain statements were made.
Okay.
Okay.
And did you hear Mr. Sanderson say anything during the entire incident?
Oh, of course.
What were those things?
Well, at the first, he was apologizing to her.
You
and
heard that with your
I
own
did.
ears?
Yes, I did. And but
Yeah, that's what I thought.
when they started responding to my questions,
I thought he
the
was-
first thing I needed to do is get their skis off. It's very hard to get up on any slope with your skis on. A lot easier to take them off. But also, they were entwined with each other. I mean, they were kind of, tangled up with each other. And so the best thing to do was to get their skis off. That's the safest thing to do. And so she was on top. And so
I
I
think
took,
you might have said at some point Gwyneth was underneath, but she was on top. That's your testimony.
did I? Yeah,
I didn't catch
I'm
it,
sorry.
but
Did I get that backwards?
My partner said you did. I didn't
Okay.
actually catch that. Just be
Okay.
clear.
Okay.
Who was on top?
She was on top.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Sanderson was on the slope lying down, and she was on top of him.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And their skis
Glad we
were
got that clarified.
intermixed.
And their skis were kind of tangled up with each other with their legs
Okay. First thing you did, I heard you say you removed her skis.
because she was on top. It's the only way I could do it.
Okay. And help her sort of separate.
Right. And I gave her my arm and helped her up. And then I immediately went and helped get Mr. Sanderson's skis off. And then I put my arm out and helped him up also.
Did you just grab him and jerk him up onto his feet?
Of course not.
Did you do that?
That would have hurt my back. I'm too old to do things like that. No, I just simply gave him my arm.
That's why I was
Help him get
surprised
up.
about his age.
You heard him say what words in terms of the apology?
He said when she was talking to him, he simply said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But then he also made a statement about she
Gwen-
just
Gwyneth
appeared
was
in
on
front
top.
of me.
Okay. You remember those words?
Yes.
What does that indicate to you in terms of who was the uphill skier?
Well, what indicates that he was the uphill skier is that I witnessed him coming much faster than anybody else on the slope, coming down the hill, and I looked away mere moments before the impact. So that's number one, why he would be the uphill skier. The other thing is that it would be very difficult to be underneath her if he hadn't hit her from behind.
And explain.
Well,
Objection, foundation.
I don't know what that means.
He didn't see it.
I'll allow a
okay.
Instructionist.
Go ahead.
What I did,
The
Just say
objection, the
overruled,
objection
I
should be
think.
called for
He
expert
was there,
testimony.
his perception.
what I did see is everything leading up to it and the immediate aftermath. So I cannot speak to the actual collision, but I can speak to what I saw
Yeah.
immediately before and the aftermath.
Right, but I think you told me at one point, like if a soccer player takes out someone's legs, they're underneath.
Yes, it would be very similar to that. It's a
Just if you landed on their
situation
back.
where it would be almost impossible to be in front of Miss Paltrow and then end up underneath her.
So I heard a few things. If we're trying to outline things you heard from Mr. Sanderson's own mouth, she appeared right in front of me. Yes,
That is correct.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes. He was not real talkative, to be honest with you.
How about? Did you ask him, "Are you okay?"
I had to. That's the whole time I'm removing skis and getting ready to help them up. I'm asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
So the answer, did
Was
you
it-
ask him if he was okay?
I did, and he was affirmative. He said yes.
All right. And did a ski patrol duo come by?
They did. It was just a few minutes later than that. Now, by this time, Mr. Ramon has arrived on the scene. And so two patrollers are just making a ski by. And one of them came up to us and said, do you need any help? And Mr. Ramon, Mr. Sanderson, spoke to each other. I was still kneeling on the snow, getting their skis ready. And whatever they said, they turned to the patroller and said, "No, we don't need help."
All right. So they talked to each other quietly out of your hearing.
That is correct.
And did you try to influence them? Like, say no, say no.
Of course not.
Come on, man.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And what did they say? Who spoke? Who declined help?
I would assume it was Mr. Sanderson, but they looked directly at the patroller and refused help.
All right.
Yeah, I don't
If they had
I don't know
said,
that I would believe him like
I'm
yanking
not
this
okay.
guy.
if Mr. Sanderson said, I am not okay, what happened? What would have happened?
That would have changed the entire situation. People on a ski slope have minor bumps and things constantly.
Objection, speculation.
Oh my God.
Maybe you could rephrase the question as phrased it is speculation.
Oh my God.
Well, what have you observed over 40 some years
44 years.
with
It's a vagueness.
with regard to skier collisions?
Okay.
Objection.
Sustained.
What
Okay.
have you yourself?
I can answer the original question.
So the judge sustained it, so I'm rephrasing my question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, have you personally come across skiers who have collided before?
Yes.
And just comment on what you've observed.
If they're
Objection overbroad.
Overruled.
Both in a situation where they each claim they're okay, typically the two skiers part ways and ski off. If anyone is hurt, now it's a total different scenario, and patrol will have to be called. Statements will be taken. Patrol will assess how much injury there is, whether they need to be taken out in a toboggan or whatever. And so patrol takes over at that point, and we become simply witnesses.
All right. Was this important to you to know the answer to that question, whether the skier from his own mouth felt he was okay?
Well, of course, because if either skier had said, "Oh, I'm hurt, I need assistance," that would have changed everything.
Okay.
That would have, made it so we would have all stayed on the scene.
And if Mr. Ramon and Mr. Sanderson had said to the ski patrol person, we need assistance, would that have changed anything?
I would have been there the whole time. Yes.
Okay.
I kind of want to see like
testified essentially
a policy
she
by Deer
said,
Valley about like that they're required.
you just skied into my effing back. All right. Did Mr. Sanderson say anything like that?
No, he did not.
What did he say? She appeared right in front of me.
She appeared right in front of
and
me.
that's on the Deer Valley
You
report.
didn't know that he had a blind eye at that time.
No, I did not.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm now going to have James show an additional, just to the witness himself, an additional animation.
I wonder if we could approach the bench on that.
Hang on a second. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So they're approaching the bench. Yeah. I mean, he does seem like a credible witness to me. He's coming across pretty like even tempered. I mean, granted, this is direct examination. So this is going to be the friendliest part of his time sitting there up on the stand. So the big question is always for all of these witnesses, how are things going to look on cross-examination? I mean, this differs pretty significantly from what Craig Ramon said and from what Terry Sanderson said. But of course, Terry Sanderson's account of what happened does seem to be very reliant on Craig Ramon's testimony and his account of what happened, because his memory is pretty spotty of that whole event. At least that's my impression. So his account here, what's his name? Christensen's account is different from Craig Ramon's in that Christensen says that they were both on their back, that they had landed on their back, which makes sense. If Terry Sanderson came up behind Gwyneth Paltrow, his skis went underneath her. It's almost like when you go to like the grocery store and they have like giant pallets of product that they need to like pick up and put onto a truck or take off of a truck, right? Having one of those machines, I don't know what they're called, but one of those machines that has like the prongs, it goes in and like scoops them up. It's kind of like that. Like the skis kind of just go in between her skis and kind of end up just propping her up. That's how she would end up on top, and they would end up on their backs. Forklift. Thank you, Cycle Boy. Excuse me. So, anyway, so it's kind of like that sort of effect, especially because if he's coming from behind her and he's coming in faster, because right, that's how he would be gaining on her, is he has a greater rate of speed. Or a pallet jack. Okay. Rattlesnake maybe has it. I'm not sure. Either one of those. Igloo Pop, thank you. Cycle Boy, you guys catch my drift. But I mean, because he would be coming in faster, he's going to at some point collide. His skis are going to continue going, which means they would end up falling backwards. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. The question is, at the time that Craig Ramone saw them, because he was 40 feet away, but I think he was a little bit uphill. So he may have been able to see something. I think that he probably saw some amount of this collision. The question is how clearly he saw it, because A, he's colorblind, as we talked about before. And he said on the stand, he said himself, he admitted, he said that he couldn't tell the difference between her ski suit and his ski suit. So they looked like one person. But if Terry Sanderson ended up face down, it could have been that he rolled over and then ended up on his face because he had passed out. I don't know. Like if he did pass out, even if it was just for 30 seconds or 2 minutes or what have you, a short amount of time, it still would be strange to me how he would land on his back and then roll over. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh yeah. And Ace Moonshot. Yes. Closed captions are on. It's just silent right now because they turn off the sound for the, what is it called? For the sidebars. So Nathan Oakley, 1980. Yeah. He went under her. I bet what she detailed is a few seconds was even less. The Paltrow, remembered as these things go in slow motion. Yeah, I mean, it may have been something that she thought was, it may have been that in her mind it was all in slow motion because everybody's had those events, right? Like where you collide with something or you fall. Like I remember running a half marathon years ago, and like halfway through the half marathon, I got crowded out by a bunch of other runners and then off to the side. And then I ended up tripping and just completely eating it. And I just remember like in slow motion falling, but obviously it was normal. It was normal.
Thank you for your patience.
So I can see her having that sort of like
excuse me, James is going to show you another animation. It's also about 20 seconds and also does not have sound. And this is going to be number 1. And it's from what view, James?
It's called Looking Uphill. The name.
Looking Uphill.
Number 1.
Back it up to right there.
Right there. So just the first one. Stop it right there.
All right, so more animation, meaning that this is a demonstrative. It's supposed to aid his ability to describe what happened, not
By
this
the
isn't
way,
evidence on its own.
I wanted to introduce the fact that Deer Valley's lawyer is here. Is that true? Far right.
Objection relevance?
You're right.
My right. I see him.
And I don't represent you. Is that true?
That is correct.
You can see him with the yellow tie and the
Okay.
hats.
Before we
Something
show
like that.
this, maybe finish laying your foundation.
Let's do that.
That was
please.
so
So you've
random
had
on
a
the
chance
side.
now
What was
to
that
review
about?
what we're going to call video number 1. Okay.
That's correct.
Will that help you explain your testimony to the jury?
It will.
And will it help explain the positioning of the parties at the time of the accident?
Yes.
And if I interrupted you, go ahead.
Objection. Move to strike. That's opinion evidence.
Overruled. And so this animation will be received again for demonstrative purposes, not as evidence, but to illustrate this witness testimony.
Does it help explain your recollection of the events?
Yes.
Is it substantially similar to your recommendation or recollection of the events on the date in question?
It is very similar. Yes.
So I will ask for permission now to publish this to the jury as a demonstrative exhibit.
It is received in advance for that purpose, and it'll be stopped where I've indicated to Mr. Egan to stop it.
Okay. Do you see all these people identified? The woman on the left, top left. Did you observe her? Mr. Sanderson did, but I'm doing a little laser.
Mm-hmm.
Did you personally observe that person?
I saw her. Yes.
She was viewed, described by Mr. Sanderson as sort of a more beginner person that he did not want to hit.
Okay.
What do you recall?
I don't recall much because she was not a skier that I was concerned with.
Okay.
She was on the other side of the run. I did see her, but she was not skiing fast, so I really didn't pay much attention to her.
And then on this side, is there a bit of a little cliff or ridge here on the skiers, right?
It's not a cliff, but it is a drop off.
Right.
As most ski runs, they're created with bulldozers and machinery and to create a run, and so there's always an edge from the man-made feature.
And do you recognize these? Are these the snowmaking equipment buckets on the right?
Right. It's basically utilities.
Okay.
Here it would be one would contain water and one would contain compressed air.
And at the top of this run, on this exhibit, is that the very top of the entire run?
Of the Bandana Run, yes. You can see a lift up in the upper
I see
left-hand corner.
Top
That
of
would
I
be
don't
the
want to call
Ruby
it Banana
lift.
Run.
That's like
Yeah.
if you're prove you're not a robot. I would have missed that actually. Okay.
Okay.
Then it says Paltrow. Is that brown?
Okay.
Sanderson is identified in blue. Do you see that?
Yes.
Christensen, is that you kind of represented?
Okay. Yes.
Moses is in orange under this. You with me?
Yes.
Carrie Oakes, is she the instructor for Apple?
That is correct.
All right. By the way, plaintiffs asserted in their opening that Ms. Paltrow was reckless and dangerous on this hill. Did you observe that?
Not at all.
All right, let's run through this from start to end, or start till the crash. So we're going to stop right before the crash. Okay. Can we do it just a little longer to see where they're? Well, let's talk to you. So when
Okay,
you
yeah,
turn your head,
examination.
we want to fast forward over that. So you tell us. There's Gwyneth and there's Sanderson. Did you see a little bit more of this, or was this the end of what you saw?
I saw a little bit more of this, and
Can we go slow motion until he says, I want you to say stop.
okay.
The judge is the governing
Okay.
person here, but you say stop when you no
I-
longer observe
right.
something? Is that okay, Your Honor? Thank you.
Okay. Once he was below us. Okay, so he's heading back. I would say right in there.
Okay, you
Stop.
turned away, and then at some point you came over, And so, James, if there's a way to, were they at a complete stop when you came over?
Yes, they were.
And so, is there a way, James, to move this to when they're at a complete stop? He's going to put it back on here.
Okay.
All right. This
I always
is
feel like source
you.
room when the closed
on the
captions
right.
show
Is
up
that-
before he says it.
That would be correct.
And then they've now collided. They're pretty close to the edge there. Would you agree?
Yes, because as I walked around, I was actually standing below the lift. Below the run slightly.
And there's the buckets right there, right?
Right, those are the tubes.
And now can we play the remainder? Thank you. And Moses is going to say he essentially followed you over. Do you have any, and heard something? I'm just wondering.
Okay.
So
All
I like how he didn't even wait
Your
for
Honor should rule.
Yeah.
Sustained.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Did you observe Gwyneth upset?
Yes, she was upset.
Comment on that, would you?
When you're skiing, you don't expect to
that's what it
be
seems like.
taken out
He was in his blind
because
spot.
that
literally.
happens very fast. We cannot look behind you. Now, I'm in the habit of always looking uphill because quite often
Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Okay, just let's be a little more precise on the question. Was Gwyneth upset?
Gwyneth was upset.
And
Yes.
what did you observe?
As I came across, she was speaking to Mr. Sanderson. Once again, the first things I did was ask if everyone was okay.
Did she yell at him?
I don't know that she yelled. I remember that she was speaking quite sharply,
And
but I don't know that I would say she yelled. I can't recall that.
in your experience, is it the person who hit that says, who hits the other that says, I'm sorry?
Objection, overbroad.
Overruled.
Go ahead. Who apologizes typically?
Usually the person who
I
runs
mean-
into the other person is the first to apologize.
And who's mad?
Objection.
Who's usually mad?
Excuse me, objection, that speculation
Yeah.
and overbroad.
Overruled.
So who's usually
The
mad?
jury's going to evaluate that.
Usually a person that feels like they were the victim
Okay.
is upset.
And
There
have
are
you
many
seen
reasons
collisions
why someone
where
can
there's a dispute, like you did it? No, you did it. Have you been there?
That happens from time to time.
Was there any dispute between these two among what you saw and heard
This
from
part
them?
is like,
Mr.
it's time to
Sanderson
move the needle,
never
I think.
said you ran into me or
Did-
anything of that nature.
So was there any dispute to investigate that, like who's telling the truth?
Not at that time.
And did Ramon, by the way, did he ever come to you and say like, hey, I saw it and she hit him?
He did not.
He never said a word to you, right?
No.
All right. Let's go to the next. James is going to come show you another one. So I moved to admit this one, I believe, and it was received.
We reserve our objections, Your Honor.
Yes.
And James, do you mind? Thank you.
yeah, some people are just more apologetic than others. So it's not always an indication that just because somebody apologized, I mean, they could also be like, I'm sorry you're upset. You know, like
Before you do that.
apology was not really an apology, but sometimes that kind of thing happens too, right? So just because he supposedly apologized to her Doesn't necessarily mean that he's at fault, but in a court of law, that absolutely can be used. So it's appropriate for Owens to go into that territory. Few member chats in the main chat that don't show up in StreamYard because StreamYard for some reason doesn't like YouTube memberships. Just because says, is it improper to say what testimony will be? Well, in this particular case, Owens is directing the witness here. So he's doing direct examination, which means he can only ask open-ended questions. He cannot ask any kind of leading questions. So yes questions, no questions, questions that suggest the answer. So if he says, and Moses is going to say that he came over after that, that is leading him to, like the witness could just be like, yeah, like that's leading him into a particular answer. So that's what that objection was for. Also, Edie Marie Young. I think maybe you meant to have something in that chat, but good to see you in the chat.
Well, they get ready for us.
And okay, I guess the jury is moving out. Maybe we're gonna have some discussion here. And Janny Wallace, 4 months of being a bike club member. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, you've been in the members only live streams. That's been fun. So yeah. Cool. Yeah. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. We'll take 5 minutes.
So I guess it'll be a 5-minute break. I don't know. Maybe one of the jurors is kind of falling asleep here. Maybe the judge just has to go to the bathroom. So, yeah. John O'Rourke, thanks so much for the super chat. Bites, do you think GP will lose but only pays extremely minimum expenses? I would consider that a win from $3 million lawsuit. Yeah. I mean, they could basically, I mean, this is also a possibility here is the jury could say, yeah, she ran into him, we think, but the injuries that you say that you're suffering from, we don't really believe that much. And we don't really believe that those really come from her thing. So we'll give you the verdict to say that yes, she was negligent, but we're not really going to award any big damages for it. We'll give you some small number that is, way less than what you're asking. That is, I think that would probably also be a win for Gwyneth Paltrow as well. So Derek Boodle, no, trial's not over yet. They're just taking a 5-minute break. So yeah, I did see a bit in the chat about the use of demonstrative video like this animation. It's interesting. You don't see it in every trial. It can absolutely be misleading. And that's why I think that they paused it and then kind of like fast forwarded to another frame, especially in that second one, is because they don't want to give the jury excuse me, sorry. I'm not bored. It's just a little bit of a later hour. No, they don't want to give the jury the impression that he saw what happened and that this is exactly what happened, because this animation is supposed to convey his version or his perception of what happened, what he saw, what he felt, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just basically like the idea of this kind of a demonstrative is to make it easier to explain what happened, especially where it's like, you've got a lot of like visuals. You're talking about people swinging this way and that way. There's a lot that, like, when left to a juror's imagination, there's a lot of information that could be distorted, even if you just like leave some other details out that are not really important but could be helpful contextually. So Baby Cake, it's not over for today. We're back in 5 minutes. It's just a really quick break. I don't know, maybe someone has to pee, or maybe, like I said before, maybe a juror is falling asleep and needs to stand up for a bit. But I can see how the jury can also just look at that and be like, this is what happened. Like, so that can sometimes be a little bit too powerful, especially if it's been somehow manipulated. But that's why any demonstrative like that is going to be cleared ahead of time with the judge. The other opposing counsel is also going to be objecting to. I mean, that's like when the last one was it admitted into evidence or no? I can't remember. There was an objection about it, saying like the opposing counsel was like, this doesn't accurately depict the scene and blah 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 blah, which is fine. That's what they're supposed to do. Ellen, not Sarah Lee, thanks so much for the super chat. Says, because the plaintiff hasn't rested and directed verdict not asked for, does that hurt her chances of appeal? No, I think that probably what's going to happen is when the plaintiff side finally does finish with their testimony from Terry Sanderson, I think that probably what's going to happen is they'll have their opportunity. The defense will have their opportunity to move to dismiss the case like they normally would. Oh, anyway, yeah. So it's the only way that it really hurts is in terms of Gwyneth Paltrow's expenses, because the idea of moving to dismiss the case at the end like that, or at the end of the plaintiff's case in chief like that, the idea behind that is they want to end a trial, if it should be ended, as early as possible. So like before people have to spend money and time and effort and use of court resources and all this stuff on cases that shouldn't be there. So if it becomes apparent halfway through trial that this case really shouldn't be here because the plaintiff doesn't have enough evidence to really put on any kind of a case, that's why they have that practice. So in this case in particular, I think the only way that she's really harmed is like if they actually end up getting the case dismissed halfway through, but like they've already opened up their case in chief, and therefore she's had to like expend resources on her side, I guess. Just because there's a question, would legal fees be limited to actual direct attorney fees, or would it include these demonstratives, travel expenses, etc.? It's attorneys. So usually they'll just say attorney's fees, that she's also getting attorney's fees or asking for attorney's fees. But I think typically the language says attorney's fees and costs. So the costs to travel to court, the costs for lodging, the costs for get expert witnesses, the costs for getting all of these demonstratives done, the firm's costs for all kinds of different things that they attribute to this particular litigation. So so that can add up pretty quickly. Will they get it dismissed? I don't think so. I don't see this case getting dismissed halfway through trial, even though to me it feels pretty clear that he's not going to win this case. I don't think that I think there's enough evidence for like the jury to necessitate the jury to actually look at it and make a decision. Like there's enough of a gray area there that leaves it up to interpretation. I just think that the most reasonable interpretation is she probably wins. Sorry, it's so rude of me to be yawning like that. So this would possibly be more than he's even asking for work put in. Yeah, maybe. I mean, this case has been around for a long time, so I would anticipate that there have been some significant attorney's fees and costs that have accrued over time. So yeah. Sorry, did not mean to pull that one up. So yeah, I think at this point, There is a possibility here, though, with this witness, with Eric Christensen, that, I mean, he could be influenced to bend things because of the fact that he wants to continue to work with Gwyneth Paltrow. That is a theoretical possibility that we should keep in mind. Whether or not he's coming across that way, I don't think he's coming across shady at all. He seems pretty straightforward in his delivery. We'll see if that holds up on cross-examination, though. But I mean, he's been a ski instructor for 44 years, 39 years at Deer Valley. And I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, I think I remember reading that this instructor, or did it come out at trial? I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was in an article that I saw, but he had apparently taught her kids a number of times before, I think. But yeah, let me know what you guys think on this particular witness. Matthew DeCoste. Yeah, he seems pretty professional so far. He does. I agree. He seems professional. And yeah, based on the testimony earlier before today, I expected Eric Christensen to be like in his 30s or 40s because of the aggression that they had testified to, and
The jury is assembling.
and particularly like the idea that Eric Christensen like yanked him up off the ground.
Sure.
I don't know. Like he seems like
So there
a
are
pretty big,
total of
strong guy,
7,
but
animations.
I thought it was
we
going to be a
we
bit
wanted
younger.
to get in 6 through him. Your Honor has mentioned concerns with repetition, and we'll show one, as asked that we show just one more. I will represent that he will establish foundation for all of them for the portions he saw. What I wouldn't want is, because we have to hurry, we only do the 3, and then the plaintiffs object to us getting in the other.
Just because this
3
is
to
definitely
4.
possible as well.
So I'm all for not repeating myself, but there are different views. So I kind of moved to publish all of them.
Okay. And I think I've made my ruling that at least, each one of these, any animation is a demonstrative exhibit, and it's illustrative of a witness's testimony, not of a case. And right now we've had 2 come in for this witness. Well, it looks like we may get one more, or a portion of it anyway. And all I can do is say that I'll take the other animations as they come, as demonstrative of a witness's testimony, if they are.
All right.
I think we could move very quickly through them if they'll just agree that he'll say the exact same thing for each one of them, but which I don't think would be repetitive. But may I ask him that you've reviewed all of them and they all fit these 5 points, but we're only going to address one?
I mean, it's repetitious with this witness. So
Right. We're only going to show one, but can I establish the foundation for each of, like the other 4 in mass?
if there's an agreement to that effect, otherwise you'll have to go through the normal process.
And I'm not hearing these people say.
Yeah,
All
just
right,
because
so I do feel like
I think you're right about this. The only
can't-
thing that I
you
think
can't
though,
do
is that
it,
there could be other
but they
skiers
won't agree.
that would come by
that if
and then
we did it,
report on this
we could
Deer
do
Valley
it.
instructor.
If
Like they could
if,
make a complaint against
people are
him.
following me.
I'd want to
It
know,
was
are there any
raised
complaints against
pre-trial
him
in
from
an
like
effort to smooth things
previous
out, and I think it
cases?
has helped dramatically. And I haven't changed my ruling from what I did at pre-trial. So I haven't changed my mind on it either.
John O'Rourke, thanks so much for the super chat. Bites, what are your thoughts with the plaintiff's witnesses continuing
Okay,
to change
we're
their
ready for
depots
the
while on the
jury.
stand? You're also, thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. Yeah, no, it's super shady. It's consistency is key with any witness. The more that you have a witness that strays away, either because of memory or or bias issues or any perception issues, any of these things, the more that a witness strays away from the things that they've said in the past, the worse off they are with their testimony. So, Girl Scout, in a civil case, is there a plaintiff rebuttal? Typically, there is. If
Let
they
me just
reserved
clarify
it,
for
they
the
don't have
record,
to reserve it.
Mr. Owens, if you give me
But it's
just
a
a
similar
minute.
concept because the
The
plaintiff has
last
the burden
animation,
of
which was called the looking uphill
proof.
animation number 1 demonstrative exhibit, was received for demonstrative purposes from 0 to 8. I believe that's 8 seconds. And then from 17 to 22.
Nathan, I don't have that perception about all ski instructors. I have that perception
Okay.
about this ski
We're gonna
instructor
show one
based
more
on
video,
how they had
okay?
described them.
By the way, have you reviewed all 7 videos?
I have, yes.
And we're only going to look at one, but do they all help explain your testimony to the jury?
Objection overrun, Lex Foundation.
Your Honor, Mr. Owens already ruled on that.
Okay.
It's-
We're only going to talk now about the overview view. Okay. Overhead. Thank you. Can Mr. Egan show the witness that
Yes, please.
animation? Thank you. This is also about seconds. It's also no sound.
We're not going to get to see it.
So mine's
Probably the same spot,
again,
same seconds.
it's not going to be
Are they all synchronized?
Yeah, they're all the same. So like red is eternity, so red is eternity. Like this is saying,
And the 17 to 22.
yeah, this is saying 9. So I'll stop it right here. It's not changing, but
You
the same spot.
keep track of the seconds.
Have you had an opportunity to review the animation from the overhead viewpoint?
Yes, I have.
And just so you know, since you did not see the accident itself, the moment of impact, we're going to skip over that part.
Okay.
And so, like you did with the other one, we want you to tell us when to stop, when you stopped viewing something. Does the video, I should say the animation you just saw, will it help you explain your testimony to the jury?
It should, yes.
Overruled?
Yes, it will.
Will it help explain the position of the parties at the time of the accident?
That is probably the most important part, yes.
Does it help explain your recollection of the events?
Yes, it does.
Is it substantially similar to your recollection of the events on the date in question?
It is.
So move to publish this to the jury as a demonstrative exhibit.
Your Honor, same objections. Also, it lacks foundation because he can't possibly know what the view from whatever 50 feet above is.
It's received for demonstrative purposes only, not as evidence, but as illustrative.
Your Honor, once again, what number is this one? To thank you for the overhead.
Uh,
Your overhead view.
Thank you. Do you see the buckets in the top right? The
Yes.
snow buckets? Does that help you in providing a landmark for where we are?
It does.
Now, you weren't flying over this in a helicopter looking down, right?
That is correct.
And the animation isn't perfect. Do you agree? It's not as good as if we had had a drone looking down on the site.
Yes, the animation shows everything almost in slow motion, and the events were much more dynamic.
Okay, fair enough.
But as far as positioning, it's very good.
All right, let's show the video, and James is going to jump over. Will you tell us when to stop? Okay, let's stop for a minute and just orient everyone. Okay, at the top in yellow is Miss Oakes, the ski instructor. Is that true?
Correct.
Then apple and purple, that's Gwyneth's daughter. True?
Correct.
Moses, Gwyneth's son, right?
Correct.
Then you're just out of the screen,
I'm,
Christensen.
yeah, I'm on the screen here.
Yeah, our screen's just a tad
Goes
lower.
smaller,
You're about to
okay.
come in.
Okay.
And then woman is what's been viewed to as a kind of a more beginner skier. And you observed her?
I observed her, but didn't pay a lot of attention to her.
Okay. And Mr. Sanderson will talk about her, and then Ms. Paltrow. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, let's stop just for a minute. Mr. Sanderson is over here. Did you observe him making turns?
Yes, I did.
What kind of turns?
They were large radius.
Asking it and
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah, he already testified.
Overruled?
They were large radius turns, edge to
I don't wanna
edge,
go over it again.
quite dynamic.
What's the word radius mean?
Radius is from the center of what would be a circle to the outside of the circle, and that's the arc that your turn makes.
So big or small?
He was making fairly large radius turns.
And what kind of turns was Gwyneth making?
She was making a shorter radius turn, so she was in a very narrow corridor, and he was, we use the term carpet to carpet, which means that you ski from one side to the opposite side as you make your turns, and he was close to carpet using the entire run.
And which is safer for the skier?
Well, if you make a small turn, you're out of the line of traffic. Making large radius turns is fine, but you have to be aware of all your surroundings, and you have to be watching to make sure that you're not coming into traffic.
Okay.
Which
And when
Sanderson
you're,
testified.
let's play a little
differently.
more, and will you tell us when to stop? You're seeing this on your own monitor. Stop when you stop seeing things.
A little bit further. A little bit further. Right. Just okay. He's now below me,
Right there.
and so that's when I turned away from him.
And how many seconds is that on the, just for the record?
It's shown 5, but I know it's not 5.
Okay. So were Gwyneth's skis headed downhill when you last looked?
Well, on a short radius turn, your skis are going back and forth, and she was making her turns very rhythmically. She was in a pattern, and a rhythm. And so, her body was facing down the hill.
Okay. And have you known her to be a reckless skier
Never,
or to ski out of control?
no.
Okay. And when you stopped us here, and I just want to be clear, was Mr. Sanderson's skis then moving toward her?
That is correct.
Now, is it possible Mr. Sanderson moved ahead of her and then slowed down?
I can't say for sure, but the amount of time that elapsed from the time that I looked away to the time of the collision, there was not much slowing.
Objection, speculation, lacks foundation, move to strike.
Overruled?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
From the time that I looked away until I heard the scream was a very short period of time.
By the way, no one said that, for instance, Mr. Sanderson pulled in front of her and then came to a stop and then was hit, right?
No one has ever made that claim.
All right. And now we're going to jump ahead to when they came to a stop. So we're taking this off the screen. All right. And how many seconds do we know is this through?
So my turn till we go.
Yeah, I got to press play, I think.
Okay, let's play the remainder.
16.
Okay. So there's Moses. He's sort of stopped They're the buckets in the top right, correct?
Yes.
I'm calling them buckets. Did you call them snow-making equipment?
Well, we call them tubes.
Tubes.
Typically,
Okay.
they're big round tubes that just fit over everything because there's a standpipe and sometimes an electrical outlet. Sometimes it's a compressed air pipe that comes up.
All right.
It's just protection so people don't bump into it.
All right. And let's just talk some more.
It's usually what you do on direct examination.
Are there risks associated with skiing?
There certainly are.
On the back side of every ski pass you've ever seen, are those risks identified?
They are.
And what do they include?
They say that skiing is
Your Honor, this is, we've already discussed this. This goes beyond the scope of his testimony and what's allowable. If you'd like, we can approach.
I think it's fine, so I'm going to overrule the objection.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, the discussion about the inherent risks of skiing.
Yeah, I don't hear that question yet.
Well, he just said it.
He asked him what was printed on the back of a ticket.
So overruled. Go ahead. Comment on the back of
Okay.
every ski
Overruled,
ticket
that's
you've
for
ever
the
seen.
judge to say.
I think it's talking about liability of the ski area. It does state that there are risks involved, that there may be patches without snow, there may be rocks, there may be trees. There's the possibility of collision with stationary objects or other people. And so there is a risk when you ski.
And so when Mr. Sanderson bought his pass, he understood that the risk of a collision with another skier that's printed right on his ticket.
Sustained.
Are you aware it references the risk of collision with another skier as an inherent risk of skiing?
It is
Overruled.
It is printed on the back of the ticket, yes.
Yeah, that's
And the pass
Definitely
holder
gonna be printed on the
accepts
back of
full
the ticket.
responsibility for all risks associated with the activities.
Counsel, you approach.
Yes.
okay. Another sidebar. Yet another sidebar. Is it any wonder why the trial is going a little bit later than anticipated? Yeah. A lot of objections. There are different strategies that you can take with these objections. Sometimes it's worthwhile, sometimes it's not. From the defense or from the plaintiff's perspective, sometimes the impact of their objections here, sorry, let me go back. Sometimes the objections have a particular impact of drawing attention to the testimony, breaking it up. Sometimes it has the tendency to interrupt the flow of the conversation being had between the attorney and the witness that's being directed. So that can be a strategy, but if you're objecting a lot and you're especially getting overruled on a lot of them, I haven't been keeping track how many of them they've been overruled versus sustained, but at a certain point, sometimes the jury starts to look at that and says, like, I don't know how confident you feel about your case. It's something that happens sometimes. Derek Boodle, he can't possibly know what's on the ski ticket. I think he could. That's boilerplate documentation that's on the back of every single ski ticket from season to season, generally speaking.
Risks of skiing. So separate from the ski pass, okay? I do want you to just reference what do you understand the risks of skiing to be?
Well, you're dealing with activity that involves sliding on snow, covers different conditions, different weather conditions,
Yeah, loopy
different
stations.
times of the
We're talking
season. Conditions can change constantly. You can have a front that can move through, and it can go from a fairly nice day to a super windy day with snow, blowing back and forth. So conditions are changing constantly, and part of what we try to do as ski instructors is to give people enough skills that they can deal with all conditions. And there are times when you have to go in. I mean, there's times where it's just too nasty outside and it's not comfortable and you will go in. But we want to help people be safe at all times.
And but sometimes even though skiers are being careful, collisions do occur.
Objections. Calls for opinion evidence.
Sustained.
Comment on terrain. Terrain varies as well.
Terrain varies very much. You would never want to take a low level skier.
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You would never want to take a low level skier on something that is over their head where they would be frightened, unable to move, and make mistakes. We try to keep our terrain that we ski people on within their ability levels. And of course, if you're trying to teach, it's much easier to teach if they're comfortable on their terrain. If they're only thinking about surviving that terrain, it makes a very unteachable time.
Is a skier expected to ski within their own abilities?
They are.
Does that include physical abilities such as ability to see and hear?
I would say that covers it. If you have certain disabilities, you want to make sure that you compensated that by the way that you were skiing, the speed you were skiing, how you were looking around, etc.
From what you observed in your investigation after the accident, do you believe Ms. Paltrow was skiing within her ability at the time of the collision?
Objection, foundation. Calls for expert opinion.
Sustained.
Okay.
Sustained us to the
Did-
expert
did
opinion,
you-
yeah.
Try to put together whose fault this was?
Calls for a legal conclusion.
What happened was
No? Okay.
Answer that question.
Objection.
Pardon?
Yes or no?
Did you try to figure out what had happened?
Yes.
And what did you do to do that?
I observed how they were on the ground.
Expert opinion.
Overruled.
And
Okay.
Your Honor, we're going to bring up his report right now, which has been pre-admitted, but go ahead. What was your
Okay.
investigation?
The first thing I did was observe how they were on the ground.
And what did you observe?
That Mr. Sanderson his head was uphill, skis downhill. That Miss Paltrow,
Your Honor, this is getting obstruction.
Okay. Come on up.
All right. Another sidebar. Yay. Sidebars and sidebars and sidebars. I will say this testimony is starting to drag a little bit because we've already kind of established here the basics of like what happened. So at this point, maybe it's just because of the hour for me. Or maybe it's just because it kind of just feels like the testimony is like starting to repeat itself with this witness. I'm not so certain what else we're going to be getting out of him. I mean, other than like I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen the Deer Valley incident report yet.
One of the points, so is that overruled? To be, okay.
Getting it on
So,
the record.
we're
Make sure
going
the
to bring
jury
up
hears
that
it.
report. What did you observe on the issue of where the people were when they came to a stop? So Sanderson
Okay.
versus Paltrow.
okay. When they came to a stop, they were very close to skiers right, the edge of the of the run. Both had their skis below them. Both had their skis still on their boots. There was no releasing of skis. Their heads were uphill, their feet were downhill. And Miss Paltrow was on top of Mr. Sanderson.
And what does that tell you, the fact that their skis were still on?
It means that there was no heavy impact which would knock them over, like side to side. There was no, basically it means that they went down without any heavy impact on their ski boots.
If someone were to come and just kind of hit and literally project that person forward.
Objection, expert opinion testimony.
So my question is not complete.
Just a minute, go ahead.
Okay, if someone were to come and hit a second skier and propel them airborne, so they're flying, would they have ended up where they were when you saw them?
Objection, speculation.
Yeah, that calls
Sustained.
that calls
Okay.
for an
How many
to reconstruct
incidents
that.
like this have you been present for?
It would be impossible for me to say because after 44 years of being a ski instructor, most of that full time, you see a lot of different instances. Could not speculate on that.
So I think I cut you off because I said, what did you do to try to figure out what happened? So when you said, I look at where they land. Go ahead then.
I look at the positions of the body where they land. It would be very difficult to get in that position without somebody hitting from behind.
Okay.
Move to strike, expert or just opinion evidence. That's
Sustained.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what else do you look at other than where they land?
The next thing I observed was what they were saying, and what of course Miss Paltrow was saying that she had just been hit. She never saw it coming. She was surprised. Mr. Sanderson made the statement that she just appeared in front of him. He was saying he was sorry. And that's basically the conclusions that I came to.
objection. Move to strike. Conclusions or opinions that lack foundation and that this witness is not
Qualified.
able to, not properly designated.
These are speaking objections, Your Honor.
Would you please approach the bench?
All right. So they've got what Gwyneth Paltrow's attorney here is trying to do is he's really trying to get the witness to basically say, it's my opinion that this guy caused it based on how they landed, based on how I've seen other people land in the past. But that's just, that's expert testimony because that is, reconstructing and a cause and effect, right? You have to have properly qualified someone as an expert to be able to have them be able to testify to, how something could have theoretically cause a
To your
specific
report.
result.
So this is called D25A. Do you see this?
I do.
Did you prepare this that day?
Yes.
And did you engage in a cover-up to try to hide Gwyneth's reckless scheme?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled?
No, I did not.
Is that ridiculous and offensive?
It's very
Leading.
much so. Part of what we're required to do is if there is an incident, if there's an injury, it's mandatory that everything that we be written down in a report. And on instances where there's a bump or something like that where there are no injuries, it's up to us to decide whether it is prudent to fill out the report. And I decided it was prudent that day.
Okay. And exact location of incident. You wrote what?
I wrote skiers right, bandana, slight pitch before the flat on top.
Okay. Is that an accurate statement?
It is.
Number of students, you said there was what?
There were 6 in group, 2 instructors.
Okay. Now, there's been some testimony that Brad, her then boyfriend, now husband, also had 2 kids out with separate instructors. Is that true?
That is correct.
But they weren't in that group of 6 that was coming down Bandana. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. Students' ability. Now, was Gwyneth the student here, or is Moses?
Well, Moses was my student that I was skiing with, but Gwyneth was the person in the incident, so I wrote her name on the top.
There's some suggestion that immediately before this incident, somehow Moses was going, "Hey, mommy, look at me, look at me." Did you observe that?
That did not happen
And how do you know that?
because I was next to him.
Okay.
It's a pretty good reason to be able to say that.
So again, any implication that she was distracted because she was looking across the hill to Moses, you would dispute?
Objection, speculation, bleeding.
Just clarifying an
Sustained
important
is
point.
bleeding.
Yeah, it is late beating.
Well, plaintiff has raised an issue, and I want to know if your thought on it. The thought is
And
that
ask it in a way that
plaintiff
allows
has
him to
asserted
answer that properly.
is that you, right before the incident, Moses was saying, "Mommy, mommy, look
Objection
at
asked and
me."
answered.
And your thought on that?
Objection, leading, lacks foundation,
Asked and
this
answered.
states prior testimony.
Overruled. The jury will have to remember the prior testimony.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Did that happen?
I never saw that happen. As we were skiing along, we were basically making our own turns. Miss Paltrow was skiing down, making very nice short radius turns. And we were separated by the width of the Bandana Run.
I was skiing with 9-year-old son. Group was skiing down Bandana to lunch. Is that all true?
That is correct.
What was the student doing at the time of the incident? Go ahead.
Short turns down the fall line on skier's right.
By the way, had Gwyneth skied with you all morning with Moses?
I think we took one initial run together and then we split up with the intention of meeting at the top of Flagstaff Hill at a certain time to go to lunch.
All right. And had you and Moses already been on some ski runs without Gwyneth?
Yes.
And how many about?
Probably in that time span, about 4 or 5.
Short turns down fall line. Is that what that says, fall line?
Yes, fall line.
What does that mean again?
The fall line is if you were to take a round object like a ball, set it down, it's the path that it would follow down the hill. So it's basically the most correct downhill line.
On skier's right. So the reference is where on the run?
Correct.
Next.
Skier's right would be, as you're facing down the hill, would be here. Skier's left, of course, over here.
Next portion. Chief complaint, would you read your answer?
Male skier took her out from behind. I didn't see it, but heard her scream as she went down. I skied directly to her. The man was behind her. Both were in discomfort. During lunch, she talked of being stiff and sore.
All right, let's just talk about that. Male skier took her out from behind. Why did you say that?
Because of the positioning of their bodies on the ground, but also I clearly observed him as the uphill skier. Now you can't, right on the skier responsibility code, it says that the uphill skier has the responsibility to avoid the downhill skier, because as we're skiing, our vision cannot see behind us. And that's the reason for the responsibility code. And since observed him moving very rapidly down the hill and only missed a few moments before the contact, I can clearly say that he was the uphill skier.
Did you determine one of them violated the skier responsibility code?
That would be my observation.
He was about to say opinion.
Um,
Calls for speculation.
Way beyond the scope of this witness's. He's not an
Witnesses.
expert witness.
Overruled.
And who did you believe violated the responsibility
Okay.
code and who complied with it?
I would say that the
As to that question.
Okay. What did you find at the time with regard to the skier responsibility code?
Sustained.
Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to get an opinion out of him, and he almost said opinion, but he caught himself. That's a good indication. I mean, this witness is savvy.
May I consult with my counsel? It's just one sec.
So this idea of him being an expert, not being an expert, it's interesting, right? Because, you know, as Derek mentioned, 40-year ski instructor should be characterized as an expert. But in a court of law,
All right,
you have
next
to go
statement
through all the
here.
steps to qualify him as an expert. It's a lot more than just how long has.
First
Oh,
of
yeah,
all,
read
is
it.
the true
Been doing what
statement
he's
is
been
what you
doing.
said. Were you speaking the truth when you prepared this report?
Okay. Where were you in relationship to the student at the time of the incident? I was above the student.
Okay.
Did you witness the incident? I said no, because I did not see the impact. If not, how did you become aware of the incident? I saw the immediate aftermath.
Okay. Was ski patrol called or first aid visited? You marked what?
I marked no, because we did not call patrol, because patrol came along very soon after
Yes,
that.
this is.
And
this
to
is
the right
Paltrow's
there, what did
witness.
you write? Name of patroller.
I did not catch the name. I wish that I had. But once again, if there had been comments of, oh, I'm hurt, something's wrong, things like that, things would have changed very quickly. But what happened was I was in the process of helping Mr. Sanderson get his skis back on. I had my skis off, and both he and Mr. Ramon were there together. The patrollers came by, and one of them came up to us and asked if they needed any assistance.
Objection, hearsay.
Hearsay?
This
is
is
what I-
he is explaining a story.
This is exactly what I observed.
I guess for limited purpose, not necessarily as to the truth of what this person
Yeah,
said,
it's not
but
offered for the truth of
as
the
to
matter.
why he acted the way he did. So it's limited purpose evidence.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Keep going.
Okay,
the
so-
controller said.
So the patroller asked if they needed assistance. Mr. Sanderson and Mr. Ramon spoke to each other. I was just kneeling on the snow. I did not hear what they said, but they turned to the patroller and said, no, we're fine, or something to that effect. And so the two patrollers continued down the hill.
And then as the student returned to skiing, that's Miss Paltrow. But comment, did you see Mr. Sanderson then ski away?
I was the last one to put on my skis. So Mr. Sanderson, Mr. Ramon were already in their skis. I was the very last one to leave. And so I can't recall exactly how they skied off, but we basically either skied off together at the same time or they left slightly ahead of me.
Okay, we're going to look at the end of this report and move on here.
Yeah, the skis popping off. He
Additional
testified earlier that
information
he
you wrote,
took her skis
Carrie
off of
Oaks,
her.
correct?
That was how he was
Right,
able
she was
to
the
untangle
other
her.
instructor that was there.
Additional comments. First thing male skier.
Stated.
Stated.
Oh, ski-
Male ski
Skier.
stated.
Should be male skier.
Was that she appeared right in front of him,
Him.
thus admitting that he was the uphill skier. She never saw him because he came in from behind. Was that your finding on that day?
That was my finding, yes.
So there's, I think, a comment that because she was tipping you for your service, that you falsified your report. Is that true?
That is ridiculous.
It says this was reviewed by Liz Wright. Is that your supervisor or what?
She is a supervisor,
Okay.
not my direct supervisor, but a supervisor at the ski school.
I
Yes,
think she
And
said that
that's your
she slid
signature,
down
bottom
a
right.
few feet.
it is.
And so same day of the event, did you try to accurately represent everything?
I did. In my mind at that point, I thought that all issues had been resolved. I never expected it to come to this type of a situation. And so I was simply writing down briefly what happened. If I had realized that this would come to this type of a situation, I would have written much more in detail.
Did I hear you say that you never observed the Mr. Sanderson unconscious?
Oh, absolutely not.
And were you there within seconds?
Probably within 10 to 15 seconds. The first thing that I did was I turned to Miss Oakes and said, "You take Moses, I'm going to go over and help out," or something to that. And then it was kind of a flat traverse, and so I simply skied across, and I was there within maybe 10 seconds.
Mr. Sanderson said you got in his face and yelled at him.
I did not. The tone of my voice would be very similar to what it is right now.
Cameron F. Yeah, I don't think that she did testify that he helped her take her skis off. She may
I think
not
they're about to get
remember
up
that
and
level of detail.
suggest
from it.
that you were sort of
I don't
in
know.
Gwyneth's
Or maybe it didn't
agent
happen.
in, making a cover up.
Objection.
Do
Legal opinion.
I'm going to have him comment on it.
Why don't you leave it for redirect?
Okay. That is my cue to sit down.
Oh,
Thank
finally.
you for your time.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
Yes, Paltrow is in court today. You can see there's Sanderson over there too.
Is it
Um,
Mr. Bueller?
Paltrow's been in court every day. I anticipate that, especially because of the fact that Sanderson hasn't been there for most of the days, they're gonna they would make sure that she's there. There is record of the injuries that they had at Bunchleck. 4 injured ribs, 4 broken ribs specifically, and then also concussion.
third
They've got
animation
X-rays, they've got MRIs.
Went
all
from
that.
0 to 8 and then from 16 to 22.
Bueller, Ferris, Bueller.
Good afternoon.
What?
Mr.
Kurt, you
Christensen,
missed
do
some
you recall your
reconstruction
deposition of October 27,
animations.
2020?
Yes, I do.
In your deposition, you mentioned that Terry Sanderson, he was underneath her, and she was talking about discomfort. She was shocked. She was somewhat hurt. Is that correct?
She was in discomfort. That is true.
Was she hurt?
There's a difference between being hurt and injured. And so anytime that you have some type of a incident, you're going to be hurt to some degree, but that doesn't mean that you're injured.
You just testified that Miss Carrie Oakes was instructed by you to take the kids down the left side, correct?
I didn't tell her. I just told her to take Moses. I didn't tell her where to go.
Okay. Miss Oakes said she went over to the crash scene and was assisting you with the 2 people in the crash.
No, she at one point she had the kids follow her, and they went down the hill, and they came by us a little bit, but she did not assist.
That
No.
could still be classified
Did she stop
as
by you?
helping.
No.
Did she also say that one of the kids said, "Mommy, watch us ski"?
That would have happened at the very top of the hill, not at the time of the incident.
Yeah, but before, just before.
No, it didn't happen while it was just before the incident. It would have
Well, let's
happened
say
at the top.
within 10 seconds.
No,
Well, how long would it take to go from, when you say the top of the hill, do you mean when you get off the chairlift?
yeah. As you get off the chairlift, you have to push yourself a little bit to the top of the Bandana Run, and it would have been in that area. So it would have been, a minute or so ahead.
So the viewpoint of those animations, those demonstrative, like a cartoon, it was was that where Miss Oakes would have heard one of the children say, "Mommy, watch us ski"?
It would have been before we started to get to that point.
Well, how do you know that? You testified that didn't happen.
What I'm saying is it didn't happen during that time.
Okay, so you agree then that one of the children said, "Mommy, watch us ski."
I cannot speak to that. All I know is it didn't happen while we were skiing down the hill.
It could have happened with Miss Oakes. She could have heard it.
Maybe she did.
Miss Paltrow, why would the kids say that? But they wanted their mother to hear them and watch them ski.
At the time of the incident, there was nothing said. We were busy making our own turns.
But just before the incident, there was some seconds that elapsed, maybe 10, 15. That's when Miss Paltrow would have heard one of her children say, "Mommy, watch us ski."
I never observed hearing that.
Okay. You never saw the ski crash, right?
I didn't see the impact. No, I did not.
You said she screamed before the crash, right?
Well, I heard her scream, which would possibly be when the contact was made.
Could the scream have occurred before the contact?
No.
You have no basis of knowing that because you didn't see it.
Miss Paltrow doesn't go down the hill screaming. There would be no reason for her to scream just to scream.
That's your speculation.
He's down the hill.
Because you didn't see
Ah!
it, right?
I did not see the point of impact. No.
You've heard of photographic memory, right?
I've heard of
Please don't
it.
tell me Sanders
memory,
has
yes.
photographic memory.
I don't know if this is a word, but it sounds like you have a videographic memory. You've got a view of everything in front of you and to the side and behind, and it lasts for several minutes.
No.
Mr. Bueller, when an incident like this occurs, is very much in your mind, and you remember the things very clearly.
Now, this was about your third time instructing for Miss Paltrow's family on her third vacation for her. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
And isn't it true that you got so close to the family, maybe not close friends, but close enough that you sent Moses, her son, some handmade pottery that you made?
I didn't send him. I gave him to him on their last day.
On this trip?
Not on this trip. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
The trip before?
I think 2 trips I gave him some things.
Did you give out candy to the kids?
No.
Did you ever tell Craig Ramon, your buddy just took out Gwyneth Paltrow?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall telling Miss Paltrow's name to Terry Sanderson? Or
I don't recall it. It may have come up, but I don't recall.
with Miss Paltrow skiing away and her group skiing away, you were the last one at the crash site with Terry Sanderson and Craig Ramon, right?
I did stay with them until they were up and on their skis. That is correct.
They being Miss Paltrow.
No, that they being Mr. Sanderson,
They
Mr.
bolted,
Ramon.
right? They
Well,
bolted.
Mr. Ramon wasn't on the He didn't take off his skis, or he wasn't on the ground.
No, he never took off his skis but Mr. Sanderson had his skis off because I took them off. And so I was helping him put his skis back on. And that was what was going on when the patrol came by.
You never got the name of the patrol. True?
That is true. Once again,
did you report this to the ski patrol at any time?
if people say they are not hurt,
I know, I just wanted
but
to.
no, I did not report it because
I-
once again,
We heard your.
patrol
reason.
came and he refused.
Counsel is interrupting the witness.
Okay.
Point well taken, counsel.
Did you finish your response?
My response is that they were offered help from patrol and they refused.
Yeah, I think this witness is still coming across pretty credibly. He's a good witness to have for the Paltrow team.
Other witnesses say that the body positions that Ms. Paltrow and you say where she's on top of Terry Sanderson, they testified that the positions were different than that. Do you know that?
It doesn't matter what they say. I can only tell you what I saw and what I
That's a good
observed.
answer. That's a good answer.
You've talked about the importance of filling out a incident report accurately, right?
Yes.
You mentioned that Ms. Paltrow said she was, or looked like she was sore, may have been hurt, or was hurt, according to your deposition, right?
That's what she told me during lunch. Yes.
Okay. And you filled out your report later,
At the end of the day, yes.
but in your report, you never got the names of Terry Sanderson, right?
I did not.
You never got the name of the only eyewitness we know of, Craig Ramon, right?
I did not, because once again, when people say I'm fine, I'm sorry, and when I ask them if they're hurt, they say no. You know, they went their way, we went our way.
I mean, yeah, this idea that he was like left behind on the mountain.
Do you know Gwyneth Paltrow says she got up by herself?
All I can say is I helped everybody get their skis off, and she may have gone up by herself. I may have helped her with an arm.
She said her skis weren't off, I believe. You know that? And they never came off.
Well, no, they never came off during the incident. I removed them so that they could get untangled.
And just backing up, right after you heard the scream, you didn't see the collision. You skied over, and you yelled at Terry Sanderson, "What did you do? What did you do?" True?
That is not true.
You don't yell at all in your life?
I did not yell. First of all, I was trying to observe what was happening, and I took off my skis. I came around to try to untangle them. I did not yell at Mr. Sanderson.
Do you ever teach group lessons?
I do.
Do sometimes the students spread out?
At Deer Valley, private rotation instructors teach max fours, which means there's no more than 4 people in your group. So I do teach those. As far as spreading out, you try to keep your group as close together as possible, but there are tasks where they may go down one at a time and things like that.
Well, if a student goes far away, don't you yell at that student to come get back in line? Don't you have to holler at them?
I don't yell. I don't
How
have
would they hear you then?
we ski down to them.
I would say his
Well, then the
temperament
other
doesn't
students go another
strike me as a
direction.
yeller.
You never raise your voice at Deer Valley? Is that your policy?
If I raise my voice, I lose my voice very quickly. I can't yell. As far as talking to students, you try to maintain a class situation where we will stop at certain places. We'll gather together. We try to always gather at the edge of the run so we're out of the line of traffic. But no, I don't go around yelling all over the resort.
I didn't say that. I just said, do you ever yell once at a student who might be too far away from your group and you want them to come back?
No, they can't come back. If they're below you, you have to go to them. They're not going to come up the hill.
You can't say, hey, come back over here, Bill.
Oh, I might. If they're just across the run, I will say things like that. But I'm not yelling.
You're whispering? Or
No, I'm talking in a normal voice.
But if there's a lift machinery or that there's noise or something, you never raise your voice at all while you're ski instructing?
This is getting a little silly, don't you think?
Oh,
I don't know. You're the one that says you never yell while you're ski instructing. I find that hard to believe. So you didn't see the crash, but you saw injury and soreness, and you didn't get the plaintiff's name, even though Ms. Paltrow may have been hurt. Doesn't that seem like a violation of what you're supposed to do as a ski instructor at Deer Valley?
What I was relying on was the comments of both parties. And both parties said that they were okay. As far as Mr. Sanderson being injured, he had a wonderful opportunity to tell patrol, I am hurt, I need help. But instead, he refused help and had patrol continue on their way. Those are when things like that happen, I made the decision that he was okay. And so once I had his skis on, I put my skis on and I left.
Within maybe 3 minutes of you leaving this crash scene, Mr. Sanderson was talking to a ski patroller who actually wrote a report and said he had sore ribs and disorientation.
Well,
Second,
yes.
there's an objection. Overruled, asking if the witness knew.
Okay. That may have happened then, but he did not report that to me.
that's exactly.
And that was after I had asked him. And once again, patrol had asked him.
The mystery patrol that you don't know the name of, right?
I do not know the name, but they know who it is from the log. Basically, they have a log where they write down when they go out to make a ski around. So they do know who that individual is. But once again, if you're a ski patroller and you come up on someone and you say, do you need help? And they say they do not, and you ski on, 3 or 4 years later, it's very unlikely that they will remember that incident. I wouldn't.
Correct. But you just said that the incident that you report, which is Terry Sanderson waved off the ski patrol, is in a log, ski patroller's log?
No, their rotation of who would be going down would be in the log.
Okay, but there's no
The-
there's no report of this in the ski patroller's log that you just reported is in there.
That's because they stopped and he did not ask for assistance. And so there's no reason that they would go down and write in a log, stopped and talked to this person, they didn't need help.
So you're saying then your testimony from about 1 minute ago is incorrect, that it's there should be a log report of Terry Sanderson waving off?
No, that's not what I said.
That's what I thought you said.
That may be what you thought I said. What I said was that when ski patrol goes out and takes a run and just observes things, they put in a log that when they leave and make that run. So they do know who was on the hill at that time.
So are you speculating about this? The skier's log? That it
No.
should show this?
This
You know this.
You can talk to Steve Graff when he testifies because he's the one that told us that they pretty well know who it is. But once again, if somebody stops and talks to somebody for just a few moments and then skis off, they're not going to remember that 4 or 5 years later because it was such a minor incident. They stop and talk to people constantly. And unless there's an incident where they have to respond, it's not going to be something that they keep in their memory.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the 4 broken ribs, severely broken ribs, my client Terry Sanderson had,
Which I didn't know about.
The kind
He
of-
didn't testify. He didn't tell me
make it
about
hard to breathe, let alone talk. And, I'm not-
Well,
and you're speculating that he was not injured, correct?
No, I'm not speculating. I'm saying that he never said he was injured.
Right.
There's a difference.
Because he couldn't speak
No, he was speaking.
normally.
I have no knowledge of that because I don't know the man. I don't know how he speaks
Good
normally.
answer.
Just give me a moment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's doing well in this cross examination. He's keeping the same even tone, and actually, like that whole long, like dialogue about him yelling, it was. I mean, first off, he just spent way too much time on that. This attorney, but the way that he talks, he comes across as someone who doesn't easily yell.
Excuse me.
But the thing is,
You
like,
say if kind of implies to me that you're speculating or it's not necessarily true. If the patrol log had information about who was skiing down at the time of this crash, we don't have that information.
Remember,
wrap it up.
these.
I don't think there's any question right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to strike
What-
the statement.
Sustained.
Was Brad Falchuk at the scene of the crash?
He was slightly downhill. I don't know, 20 to 30 yards possibly.
That's slightly 20 to 30 yards.
He was ahead of us.
Did you say, I mean, is that your testimony, 20 or 30 yards approximately?
I'd be speculating at this point, but I know that he was ahead of us.
Well, you knew that Craig Ramon was maybe 60, 80 yards, maybe out of the picture.
No,
above you.
I didn't say that. I said that he was time-wise. It took him about 45 seconds to get to us. I never said anything about distance.
What if Craig Ramon was right behind you and you don't have eyes behind your head, do you?
I do know that when I responded and came over, I took off my skis. I was helping both parties. I was over the edge just slightly on skier's right. I could see the whole ski area, ski run in front of me. Mr. Ramon didn't show up for approximately 45 seconds. So all I am saying is that he was it took him longer to come down the run. I have no idea how far up the hill he was, but he was not close enough to be right on the scene.
So the animation where it depicts Mr. Ramon way up the hill is based on not your testimony.
I never saw Mr. Ramon on the animation. Did I?
Are you looking to counsel to answer for you?
I don't remember seeing Mr. Ramon on the animation.
So that part of the animation is fiction. It's not supported by your opinion.
I do not know where Mr. Ramon was, no.
That's all for right now, unless. Oh, wait.
that seemed like an ineffective cross-examination. Completely ineffective.
If Brad Falchuk said he was first on the scene, is that true?
That misstates his testimony, Your Honor, so object to the form of the question.
Overruled.
Okay. I would say that I was the first one on the scene.
That's all for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller. Mr. Owens?
I feel like he should not redirect. Just leave it.
better copy of the prior defense 110, and I'd like to approach.
I think we already discussed this,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
as long as the other side has seen it. Oh, are these my copies?
Yes, for your
Okay,
binder, and may I put this? give
Sure.
this to the witness?
yes.
And James, could you bring this up? Take a look at that. I had a terrible copy of this before, but Defense 110 are texts between you and Gwyneth. You recognize them?
Yes, they're on my phone.
They're better quality on your phone than my photographing Gwyneth's phone. Are these true and accurate documents?
Yes, they are.
And so they're 110A and B, and let's just go through them really quick. Friday, February 26th, that's the day of the event, true? The accident?
Yeah.
Yes.
We went,
Yes.
and are you the dark color on the right or the lighter color on the left?
No, I'm the one that's in dark color.
We went down Bandana. Why are you saying that to Gwyneth?
Okay. Okay. Yes, we went down Bandana.
Okay, cool. We should take north side up. You said yes. We are going to north side again. Feel free to do your own thing. You wrote what?
We are Ruby lived.
Okay, that's at 10:36. We have new skis. This is 205 U, right? We have new skis. We've gone down Ontario and we're back to Smiles. She wrote yay.
Mm-hmm.
And then 229 Moses wants to know if you are skiing, still skiing and where. You wrote that to my client.
Yes.
And she wrote, and a little further down, James, I came in. That guy sort of hurt me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going to get a massage at 3. Gigi is here if he wants to come in. Was that a true and accurate statement?
Yes. Yes.
By the way, so separate from this, Carrie Oakes, she has some memories. Would you defer to her on what she remembers?
I know that she could testify about Mr. Sanderson's turns because we both observed him making fast, wide turns down the hill.
And Brad Falchuk has some memories, and he's gonna. Would you defer to his memories?
I don't really know Brad at all, and I've never talked to him really, so I can't say anything to that.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But yeah,
were you focused on what Carrie was doing and what Brad Falchuk was doing, or were you focused on the two people who had a collision?
I was actually focused on Moses. But part of focusing on Moses is being aware of everything around me.
Okay.
Fair answer.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
So that's it. It looks like with Eric Christensen.
Are we done with this witness?
Oh, okay, or maybe not. They're just taking their sweet time. Their sweet time. I don't know. What are you gonna ask him about? I feel like we went through everything that we needed from him. Like, I don't know, an hour ago. I feel like this. I will say, okay. One thing that I realized is, or that I thought is a possibility.
Sure. Let's take a short break now.
Okay, great. A short break. Okay, so one possibility is that the defense, remember that they're kind of sprawling. What's the word that I'm looking for? Scrambling. They're kind of scrambling to get their witnesses lined up because of the
You are right now,
ways
but
of
same
being
instruction as before. You're welcome to step down.
just for courtesy of the witness and for our witness who's about to come, can we just get a sense for how many minutes left?
5 or less.
So I had a very narrow redirect, but proceed we will.
Okay. Thank you.
I think one of the reasons why they may have gone a little bit longer was to sort of fill some time so that they don't have to call a witness today. Because if they don't have another person behind the next witness, and this is like a short bit of testimony that they anticipate, yeah, that could be problematic. So I could see them kind of, just sort of filling their time for that. I don't know if that's the case, but that was just something that I thought of. Let's see here. I saved some questions here. So this is from a little bit back. Agent Dark Michael says, so this is an animation / recreation. I'm curious how and why this can be used. Whose account is it? Sorry if you had to answer this before. No problem. No problem at all. The animations, yes, it's technically a demonstrative. So in the idea behind a demonstrative is it is supposed to aid the witness in giving their testimony. So usually you'll have a demonstrative when they're explaining something pretty complex. And so where you have where you have a ski instructor that is testifying to the changing positions of like 8 people around him and also going down the mountain, and like they're at various points and turning in different directions all at the same time, that can get very complicated very quickly. So the idea is that a demonstrative sort of helps to eliminate the need to like verbally explain all these details because you can just see it. And then the attorney can just direct your the attorney can just like direct your questioning for for whatever it is that you need out of that incident with all those moving pieces. And the account it's Eric Christensen's account. So he was a witness. The demonstrative was to aid his testimony. Cameron F., also plaintiff's lawyers telling the daughter not to change her depo because it looks bad. Oh my God. Yes. I forgot to talk about that. That was Shay, the daughter Shay. So I guess she's the oldest daughter. She testified the other day. I think it was day 3 is when she testified. She testified that she that she had wanted to make several changes to her deposition transcript after the fact. So after her deposition ended. I mean, this is every person that takes a deposition, they have like 30 days to review it and send corrections if they want to. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So she says that she had like several things that she wanted to change, but that she didn't because she had a conversation with Sanderson's attorneys, and they said like it'll create some red flags if you do. That's a little shady. That's a little bit shady if that actually is correct. And she, maybe they had a conversation and maybe she's kind of misstating what they said, or she has a different interpretation of what they said. But if that actually is what they said, it's a little bit shady. Matthew DeCoste, some of these questions do seem like expert testimony questions. Can you call a witness separately as an expert? Well, so as I mentioned before, when it comes to expert witnesses, they have to be properly qualified in order to, in order to, God, I'm so sorry. In order to testify to expert opinion sort of testimony. Basically, anything that involves an opinion for a lay witness is considered speculation, because your opinion is your opinion. Everybody's got a belly button. Everybody's got an opinion. But when it comes to an expert, they are allowed to give their opinion, which is different from a lay witness. But they have to be properly qualified. They have to jump through certain hoops in order to get there, because the jury has to be able to listen to what that witness is saying and then say, okay, yeah, we can reasonably rely on this person's conclusions, this person's opinions. So all of the medical experts that have testified so far, they testified about not just their experience and their qualifications and their education, and how, I wrote a treatise on executive functioning and all this kind of stuff. But then also they have to be qualified as to the methods that they used to reach the conclusions that they did. Another thing about expert witnesses is, generally speaking, where you have someone that is a lay witness, they were there for the event, they were there for the things that happened. You can't have someone be both a lay witness and an expert witness. At least I've never seen that happen. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, maybe I should double check, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm quite certain you would run into a lot of weird overlap issues. If you had someone that was trying to testify both as a lay witness and as a sorry, excuse me, and as an expert. So yeah, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot then. Kit Kat, what would qualify him as an expert witness? Is that even possible? I mean, like I said, they could, but they would probably have to give him up as a lay witness. So they could probably find some other ski instructor that is has trained Olympians and has been a coach for however many decades and whatnot, and and wrote books on the proper ways of skiing. I don't know, there's ways that you could definitely find an expert in this area if they wanted it, and if they really wanted to pay for it, because experts can get kind of costly. But yeah, I mean, you could qualify an expert in just about anything, at least any field, right? I mean, it's like you think of my cousin Vinny and the girlfriend. She's the girlfriend of the lawyer who gets qualified as an expert mechanic, because that's what she does, even though she doesn't have any formal training or anything like that. But she is absolutely 100% an expert, and so she's properly qualified. That is like peak expert qualification standards right there. Like, that movie is actually very accurate on that one, and a lot of the evidence and procedure and stuff. So, cool. Ellen, not Sarah Lee, thanks so much for your super chat. For the record, Deer Valley, sorry, I missed the haha. Deer Valley created the demonstrative when Sanderson was suing them. That's an interesting tidbit. That is an interesting tidbit. That doesn't necessarily make it any less reliable. But that is interesting. I could see that happening with any kind of ski resort or any kind of like facility that does these kind of like high impact kind of sports or whatever. Yeah. So, but that's interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's see here. Going through the chat to see if there are other questions. Sorry if I'm causing people to yawn here. Hey, how's it going, Kurt?
Great. I had a nice workout. I had a nice shower. So fresh and so clean. Feeling energetic.
You can come on
That's
up.
awesome.
Jury's on their way in.
That's awesome. That's good. I'm glad.
Could you
Getting your reps
verify
in.
that they are?
11,000 pounds total volume represents.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, no more questions.
Nice.
Okay.
You can, he doesn't have to stay up there.
Did you have any redirect?
No, I mean, there'd be a small possibility we call him later in the week if something new comes up.
Okay. I'll just excuse you in front of the jury then.
Okay.
Next
Yeah, I
witness
mean,
in the
it sounded
courtroom?
like he was basically done.
Yeah, go ahead. Right.
I definitely smell much better, Derek. That is true.
Yeah, I thought this witness was a good witness. I think he held up pretty well. He didn't change his demeanor between direct and cross. I think overall the cross examination was just ineffective. And I'm not sure if that is because he's a good witness or if that's because the lawyering was just not very good.
You ski, Alita?
Thank
I
you.
do, but I haven't.
So,
in a
Mr.
while.
Christensen, there are no
Only
more
information.
questions for you from the
Like high
lawyer,
school.
so
So
you're
it's been
excused for
quite a few
today, but you
years.
may be called back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go skiing.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in the case now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. You can have a seat.
Good afternoon. Yes. And maybe once you get up to the microphone, if you could state your full name and spell it. Thank you.
Whitney Smith, WHITNEY SMITH.
Ski patrol.
Whitney, thank you for being here. And we will try to get through you quickly. We're at the end of the day, and we want to make sure that we're respectful of your time here. We, again, appreciate you coming. Let's begin by asking you where you're from.
I'm from Michigan.
And have you ever met Gwyneth Paltrow?
No,
Have you ever met Terry Sanderson?
I have.
How did you meet him?
I met him at Deer Valley. I believe it was in 2016.
And what was the nature of that interaction?
I responded to an incident on the Bandana Run where he was injured.
Okay. And do you have memories of that day and those events?
I do.
Okay. And as I understand it, you also created a report about that?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll look at that report. But you were in
You never asked her,
I think
like,
the capacity
what
of a
her role
ski
was.
patrol person when you
Okay,
came upon
thanks.
him or when you were called to the scene. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you give the jury just a sense of your experience and training that got you to that point that you could be a ski patrol person?
Sure. At that point I had my EMT basic, which is our level. And I think that was my second year patrolling. So we had some medical training and we set up ropes, pads, boundaries, everything around the mountain and respond to incidents.
Do you have any EMT training?
I do, yes. I'm an emergency medical technician.
Like you'd have
Okay.
to be.
And can you give the jury just a sense of what that means?
Sure. It's sort of basic first aid that we're able to render there on the slopes, deal with any kind of life threats. And then our main deal with ski patrol is stabilize the patient and remove them from a cold environment down to somewhere where we can reassess.
Okay. And did you have that training at the time of the accident?
I did.
Okay. How many years had you been an EMT before then? Do you recall?
I think it was about 2 years at that point.
So you had seen other accidents like that, or you had come upon other accidents with that EMT training to respond?
I had responded to more than several incidents at that point.
Okay. Do you have any rough estimate as to how many?
No, I don't. Sorry.
That's fine. Let's go with your memories first, then we'll go to your report real briefly. What do you recall caused you to go to that scene where Mr. Sanderson had called you?
I don't have a specific recollection of the radio call, but I know that Flagstaff Mountain, which was where Bandana is, was called and notified that there was potentially an incident on Bandana. And then I was sent to respond to that.
And what was your understanding at the time of what the incident was that needed a response?
I wasn't sure at that point what it was. It just came in as probably, we call it a possible 1050, a possible incident, and the location.
Got it. And then what do you remember seeing when you got to that point?
Sure. When I came up, I saw Mr. Sanderson standing on the side of the run. There's a mountain host present who I believe was the one who made the radio call, and a friend was there. And then I skied up and began talking with them.
Okay. And what's your role? What are the things that you typically do when you respond to an incident like this?
Sure. So as I come into a scene, I'm already doing a bit of a scene size up. Sometimes there's clues, right? If there had been like skis up the run and someone's way down, you can tell something happened. So a size up to maybe get a feel for what's going on. And then I go in and I usually introduce myself, ask them their name, and just sort of, hey, what's happened? What's going on today? And then from there, do you have any pain or anything like that?
Was it your understanding that there had been a collision?
Not offhand, but once I had gotten there, when I asked what had happened, they said there was a collision.
And who reported that to you?
Mr. Sanderson.
And what did he tell you?
I don't recall specifically. I think when I asked, like, hey, what happened? They just said there was a collision up higher. And then they had skied down and decided that they couldn't keep skiing down and needed assistance.
Got it. So you got to a site that was different from the collision site?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember hearing anything from Mr. Ramon, the friend that was there?
While I was doing my assessment, I don't remember specific words, but I know that he had mentioned a couple of times that there was a collision beforehand and who may have been involved.
Did he ever tell you that he had witnessed the collision?
No, he was mostly talking to Mr. Sanderson, and I was kind of overhearing while I was assessing.
Okay. And what was your assessment in terms of the potential for physical injury?
So as I was talking with him, I was asking him if he had pain. I do recall he was talking about some right-sided rib pain, so we went through and made sure breathing and whatnot was okay. And then he said he was able to answer all my questions appropriately, but did seem a bit rattled.
Okay. Do you remember him complaining about anything related to his brain or his head?
I don't recall.
Did you observe him to have any cognitive disability or limitations?
Per my assessment, he was alert and oriented by 4, which is part of our assessment there, which means he's 4 out of 4.
Okay, and explain that to the jury, the 4x4 idea.
Yeah, so it's to see if you're oriented to person, place, time, and event. So I'll ask, do they know who they are? Do they know what day it is? Event, do they know what happened? And then
I have a pretty decent chance of getting it wrong.
And I usually give them sort of a general politics question, like who's the president? If they can answer that, then they're usually doing that.
Got it. So you're just trying to test that they're cognitively aware and able to speak to you, communicate with you.
Yes.
And you do that every time as a matter of course, just anytime you are on a scene and assessing a person.
Yeah, you can typically just kind of throw those in for conversation and get a feel of how someone is cognitive.
So you feel confident that you did that?
I did do that.
Confident?
Did you do anything to assess the rib pain at that point?
I don't recall specifically doing that. I can tell you how I would do that. So I can tell with confidence if that's what I wrote in my report, that is what I did.
Okay. And speaking of the report, what's the reason that you actually wrote out a report in this case?
When we go on an incident with someone who has an injury, we just fill out paperwork for everyone's liability and future needs.
Okay. Just trying to get down what the facts that were reported to you and that you observed.
Sure.
Okay, so you assessed Mr. Sanderson on the hill, and at that point, did he know who hit him?
No, he never said who hit him. He just was like, yes, I was in a collision.
Did he know what had happened?
He, aside from saying, I believe, according to my paperwork, he said he was hit from behind. So that was what he told me in a collision, but beyond that, he didn't have much in the way of specifics.
Okay. And then what about Mr. Ramon, did he report to you any details about what he had seen?
He mentioned a couple times that the steer involved had been Ms. Paltrow, but beyond that, there were no specifics of like how it happened.
And do you know how he knew it was Miss Paltrow?
I do not. I hazarded a guess that he had seen, but I don't know for sure.
Was it a little surprising that a name that you knew, like a celebrity name, had come up?
Sure. I mean, it wasn't what I expected for the day.
Right. Right. And was Mr. Ramon believable to you?
He wasn't. I wasn't talking a whole ton directly to him because I was busy. I wanted to assess my patient and make sure that he was in a good way and didn't need anything super immediate. So I do recall when it had been brought up that there was a collision that I had asked if the other party was okay because I wanted to make sure there wasn't another injured person floating around somewhere.
I see. But you didn't have your own conversation with Mr. Ramon about what he had seen?
No.
And what about, did you hear anything about someone being unconscious, or Mr. Sanderson being unconscious for a few minutes?
No, I didn't get that reported. That would have upped the seriousness of that call for me really fast.
Yeah, so that's my next question. If you had heard Mr. Sanderson was unconscious for 2 minutes or a long time, what would you have done?
That would have been, if you're reporting a loss of consciousness, typically you get to leave the resort in an ambulance. That's kind of where that goes. Even if you're mentating correctly for me there, if I hear you were out cold on the snow for 2 minutes, I'm going to call an ambulance and let you refuse them directly.
And what about loss of consciousness for a shorter period of time than that, even 5 seconds?
Sure. It's kind of any loss of consciousness. If someone said, hey, this person was out, I'm going to start looking at that.
Okay, and you feel confident that you did not hear about anything like that?
I don't recall ever hearing that, no.
She probably is the most credible to me. Because
And,
she's,
I think I asked you this, but just to make sure,
she didn't
did
even
Mr.
meet
Ramon
Gwyneth
tell you how
Paltrow.
he
She's got no dog in this
believed
fight.
that, what led him to believe that Miss Paltrow had been the other person in the collision?
I know, aside from saying the name, he didn't expound.
Okay, so then once you've done that assessment, and we covered that assessment, I should ask, that on the Hill.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, have we covered what you did in that assessment, what you remember in that assessment on the Hill?
Yes, I mean, there's a bit more to it probably.
Okay,
than
please tell the
we
jury.
know.
Yes, I don't want to cut you off.
Sure, there's it's a head to toe, right? It's not just if you tell me your ribs hurt, I'm absolutely going to look at that, but they can distract from other things. So it's a head to toe assessment to make sure that there's nothing sneaky happening elsewhere. And then I would have like palpated the ribs, have him breathe in, make sure that's all going properly.
Got it. Okay. And what were your findings after that head to toe assessment?
The majority was that rib pain. He wasn't having trouble breathing, so I was comfortable with that. But he definitely had something going on in that vicinity.
Okay. Got it. Then, as I understand it, I think Mr. Sanderson has spoken to this, that he was taken on a toboggan. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I packaged him in the sled and took him down to our first aid area.
Okay. And what happened after that?
We would have gone into first aid and I think sort of reassess once we're in a place where, okay, pull your jacket off, pull your helmet off. Does anything else hurt now that it's been a few minutes? And then from there, I do recall I spent a fair amount of time waiting for his friend to bring the car around. So we chatted for a bit.
And when you say a bit, an estimate of how long that actually happened?
Around 2 hours.
Okay.
That is
and
more
how
than a
long was
bit.
the assessment on the Hill?
It was probably 10 minutes. That's a rough estimate, but 10 to 15 before we were packaged and moving.
So you spent a lot more time with him in the first aid clinic.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I did, yes. Yeah.
It's okay. And is that typical that you would stay with a patient for 2 hours?
It's a bit abnormal. We do try and get back up into rotation, but also GBAS customer service says that we stay with the patient until the end, make sure, A to B, they're on their way and are in a good spot. And it's also just good medical care to not say, see you, bye.
Right.
I like it.
That
Good
makes
protocol.
sense. And was there any reason, aside from waiting for this car, that you needed to stay with him for 2 hours?
I wanted to keep assessing and make sure that he didn't trend downward in any of his symptoms, which he did not. So that was the main reason, was just to make sure he got on his way.
Okay. So was there any indication early in the first aid visit, the reassessment down at the bottom of the hill, that he would need 2 hours of care from you?
No.
Okay. And why do you say that?
He wasn't, trending downward. His symptoms were staying the same with his root pain, and sort of that rattled kind of feeling that I'd noted on the hill seemed to be dissipating. We were able to converse pretty well.
Okay.
Able to converse pretty well. That's not good for
Was
Terry.
there any time during all of that afternoon that you spent with Mr. Sanderson
Head trauma can be weird, man.
you saw evidence of
Yeah.
a head injury or a
100%
brain
good.
injury?
No, as time went on, I said this
that
guy is
doesn't-
ANO4, so I felt comfortable releasing him in private vehicle.
And was that ANO4? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. And again, that means that he was alert to those 4 different categories you mentioned earlier.
Correct.
And I think he
2
earlier
hours is a long
told the jury
assessment.
that you gave him some things to remember.
Yes,
Do you recall
there's
That's
a
a long
handful
time
of sort of
for
head
someone to be
assessments you
sitting
can
with
do.
him
That's one of
and
them. I'll
observing
usually
him.
give somebody 3 words, and then sort of periodically throughout the scene time, I'll ask him to repeat that for me.
Right. And was one of them your horse's name?
No, that's not usually one I use.
Okay.
I use Blue Snow 24 without fail the whole time I patrolled.
Okay. Okay.
So,
And
So he failed that memory test. Is
Let's see,
basically
so-
what she's saying.
you were doing various tests to make sure that he was
Why is it Blue Snow 24?
fully alert
I
and
wanna know.
His cognitive facilities were intact. Is that correct?
correct.
And you found no concern.
He was not trending downward. He was solid.
But did you encourage him to go get further care at all?
I did, yeah.
And what was that for?
He had the rib pain, and I told him if any other concerns came up, then you should talk to whoever sees you at the clinic.
Okay, got it. So let's go to your report. Well, actually, let's finish the day. So you finished with him once he got a ride and you knew that he was okay,
Mhm.
that he had someone to take him. What did you do after that?
I would have rotated back to the top. I don't have a specific memory of that, but I would have rotated back to the top of a mountain and checked in.
Okay, got it. And then did you talk to anybody else during the day after you had been with Mr. Sanderson about what had happened?
When I came in for the evening, he was then our patrol director, Steve Graff. I just sort of mentioned like, oh, hey, it's kind of a interesting sidebar. Somebody said they saw Ms. Paltrow on the slopes today, may have had something to do with my incident. And it was sort of just a 3-minute conversation. And then
And what was there any discussion about the injuries, or was it just the fact that it was Ms. Paltrow involved?
just the fact that maybe she was involved.
I see. And you obviously were not there. I think you've made it clear you weren't there at the actual collision. You didn't see what happened, correct?
Correct.
And you never saw Ms. Paltrow that day.
I did not.
You didn't talk to her.
Yeah, so she doesn't
Okay,
have
I'm
the same
gonna,
sort of potential bias that the last
put
witness did.
Your report on the screen here. It will also come up on that screen.
Okay.
I believe it has already been published to the jury. This is Defense 24A. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's also Plaintiff's Exhibit 1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see, this is, I'm using a different cord here up here that I haven't been using back at my table, and it's not working. Let's replug it in.
Heck, man. I understand that. Says the person who spent 30 minutes of the first live stream trying to get internet back.
We love you, Alita.
Let's wait. It's been working.
It's mutual.
Looks good now.
It's better. It's better. It's still not quite where I want. The choppiness of the court feed for everybody else is not.
Okay,
Right.
I think let's go back to, we know that this,
Well, right now I guess
this
it's
one
okay.
works.
Did you drop the resolution of the
It's a little bit
Video?
laggy.
Up here.
What's that?
Did you drop the resolution of the video? What
No, I
resolution
didn't.
is law and crime right now?
Good.
I don't know. Let's see. I didn't even think about that. It's at 720.
Okay. Well,
I could try 480.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Okay, there we go. Sorry for that wait. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so is this your report?
That's right.
It is.
And when did you create it?
Is that any better?
The date on it is the 26th of February, 2016. So that's when I would have done it.
Okay, do you remember what time in the day?
I don't specifically recall, but it does say 12 p.m. on there.
Okay, got it. And I'm just going to go through
It
a
got
few
worse.
parts of it here. So
Yeah, I think that might
pull
actually
up
be
the
worse.
Well,
first
I'm
part.
gonna
Oh,
try to-
I'm actually.
so
I'm
much
trying to
for
bring it
uncivil
back.
law suggestions here. You want more
I'm on,
pro tips? Tune in to uncivil law. Oh Lord.
Yeah, should I redact that first part? I apologize. I had it redacted on here and it just deleted.
Well, hopefully I will get it fixed before the
Okay.
next stream.
So,
Like, why don't you
My
try
apologies.
messing
Okay.
with it? Instant crash.
so
Crumble.
I just want to point out a couple things. So here on the right side, there's a weight and a height. Do you see that?
Yes.
And do you just get that from a report from the patient?
I typically just ask, yes.
Okay, got it.
5'8".
And then here it says collision and you say yes, correct?
Yes.
And then here it says with and it says unknown.
He's
other
not
party
happy about being a
present.
short king, Alita.
Why did you write that?
Because Mr. Sanderson wasn't sure about who the person involved with the collision was, and they weren't there for me to find out.
Got it. And then if we go to this next section here, there's mention of similar injury or illness, and it says yes.
Yes.
Do you see that? And then it says year 2010. Do you recall what that was regarding?
I don't recall the specific mention of what happened in 2010, but that relates directly to what I check lower down in the form as the injury. So it would have been for the ribs.
Okay, got it. Yeah, let's go to that. So down here where you talk about the injury, it's a section that's called possible injury, correct? Here on the
Correct.
side?
Yes.
And you checked fracture, I see. There's a X there, correct?
Yes.
And strain and sprain. What were those connected to?
To the ribs, yes.
Okay.
We do not diagnose, so that's why it's possible.
Got it. And then there's also a note of
She's an EMT,
or a box.
doctor, but
You
you know what? Between the two, I think the EMT.
Well,
and then head
she's
over
not.
here.
She's not using
Those
an
are
X-ray
not
machine. They're not
checked,
using
correct?
an MRI.
And would you have checked those if you were
In
concerned
a crisis, you
about
want an
possible
EMT,
concussion?
not a
I
doctor.
would.
Like if we're
And then
on
a
a
head
plane,
injury as well.
give me an EMT.
And then this section over here says other, and then if I'm reading your handwriting correctly, it says ribs.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then it says right over here, and is that related to the ribs?
The right side, yes.
Okay, so this document is an accurate representation of the injuries that you thought he possibly sustained on that day.
Correct.
Okay. And this also mentions that first aid was rendered both at injury site. You had an assessment, correct?
Yes.
And then also in the aid area, you reassessed.
Correct.
And you've already explained those two assessments, right?
Yes.
Okay. There's one part that I redacted that I want to pull up. So give me a second. Okay, so this section here says corrective lenses required, and it says yes. Do you see that? Oh, whoops.
It's gone. Sorry.
Yep, sorry.
There it
Go
is.
ahead. Go ahead. Corrective lenses required.
Yes.
Yes. And then it says worn, and you check no, correct?
Correct.
And why would you have done that?
I'll ask them the corrective lenses question if they do need them. If they tell me yes and I don't visibly see glasses, I'll ask if they have contacts in. And if they tell me no, then I'll check no.
Okay, got it. The second page of your report is Defendant's Exhibit 24B, and I think we've already published this, correct? No objections?
I know we have Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, which is the exact same document.
Similar, right? Okay, thanks. And then here I just wanted to point out there's various places where you get to kind of describe a little more detail, correct?
Yes.
And here's a section where you get to talk about what you did. And it says assessment. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then mild disorientation. What did you mean by that?
So I put assessment, and then those would be my findings on that assessment. His mild disorientation when I was there was the lack of specificity for what had happened during the collision. He was able to tell me that there was a collision and not much beyond that, or who was involved, and then the rib pain that we found.
Okay, so that mild disorientation, when you wrote it, you didn't mean that to indicate any cognitive problems or concern for concussion, anything like that?
I think it did originally spike my concern for a head injury because he wasn't able to tell me how he fell. But then as time went on, I became less concerned about that, as I noted later.
Right, and are you referring to the reassessment that says disorientation lessened?
Yes.
Got it, okay. I also note on this page that there's a section down here that says witness, and there's contact information, identifying information you could have put here, but you didn't put anything. Is that correct?
Correct.
And why didn't you put anything?
No one seemed to be a direct witness to what happened.
Okay. If Mr. Ramon had told you, I saw this and here's what happened, you would have put his name here?
Yes.
Okay. And at the bottom, you can't see it that well with what I called out, but is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes.
Whoops. So sorry about that. If you go here, right at the bottom, it says, I carefully read the above statement and it is true and accurate.
Yes.
And then that's your signature
That's
after
my
that?
signature, correct.
Okay, and you stand by that signature?
I do.
Okay. Let's go back to 24A real quickly because there's one part I want to hit that I missed. Actually, I need more than that. There's this section that says injured's description of incident. And it says was hit from behind, correct?
Correct.
And am I reading this correctly that this was Mr. Sanderson Mr. Sanderson's description because he was the injured?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically, I ask the injured party what happened, and then I'll write down exactly what they tell me.
Got it. Okay. There's also an addendum to your report, right?
There is.
And can you tell the jury why you made an addendum to your report?
Sure. And I forget who exactly made the request, but it was just requested that I fill out an extra form with anything else I might have remembered.
Okay, and this is Defendant's Exhibit 25B, and I think it has been published. No objection, correct?
No objection. It's also part of Plaintiff's Exhibit 1.
Great. Okay, so is this the additional comments that you made?
It is.
Okay, and there's a date down at the bottom I know that's 3/18/2016, which is obviously after the accident, correct?
Correct.
And so, again, why did you do this a few weeks later?
Sure. To my knowledge, it had come to note that maybe Ms. Paltrow had been present on the mountain, and with all the different information coming through the office, I wasn't privileged to that. They thought that maybe they would want some more information for that, so they asked me to write it down.
Okay, so was there a question in your mind initially about whether Ms. Paltrow actually was involved?
No, it wasn't something I was really thinking about.
Okay, so you weren't sure whether what Mr. Ramon said was true?
Yes, I was just focused on patient care at that point.
Okay. And
Everyone does.
if we go to the actual comments here, let's do your first paragraph. Do you mind reading it for us?
Sure. I recall that upon arriving on scene on Bandana at the bridge, I found the patient, Terry, standing on the right side of the run in his skis. The mountain host that had radioed patrol was above doing traffic control. A friend of Terry's was also present, a large man, blue jacket, black pants, dark hair, hereby referred to as large male friend. Terry said that he was uncertain what had happened.
Large male friend.
LMF told Terry that a woman had struck him from behind, knocking him down. LMF stated he had believed that the woman had been Gwyneth Paltrow.
LMF told Terry.
Okay, so there's this
that a woman
note.
had struck him
I think
from
you've already
behind.
described this, but I want to make sure I understand. Terry said that he was uncertain what had happened. He actually told you that.
Correct.
Okay.
And the large
And then
male friend told him.
LMF, who you understand is Craig Ramon, is that right?
Yes.
And told Terry that a woman had struck him from behind,
Which
knocking him
means-
down. So that was something you heard Ramon tell Terry?
Yes.
He didn't tell you that?
No.
Okay. Let's go to the next section here. Do you mind reading it for us?
I asked if anyone had spoken to the woman. Can I call him Craig in this? Is that all right?
Sure. I mean, you know who it is that
Craig
you met.
said he had asked her if she was all right. He said she had told him she was fine and skied away. During assessment, transport, and time in first aid, Craig continued to say that the woman involved in the collision was Gwyneth Paltrow.
So you remember that he kept bringing up this point of Miss Paltrow's involvement.
I do.
And you don't know how he knew it was her.
You know, it was
I-
Gwyneth Paltrow. You know, it was Gwyneth Paltrow.
And then I
You know, it was
think
Gwyneth Paltrow.
the last section, which I guess is
dear.
a couple paragraphs. Sorry, I cut that off.
Yeah, her testimony right now is not good for Terry Sanders. We'll see what happens on cross-examination.
So at
but-
Empire First Aid, we were met by 3 others from Terry's team group. Do you remember that?
I do.
And who were those?
According to this, it was a blonde woman, a man, and Debbie.
Okay, and you didn't have any interaction with them, or did you?
I don't specifically recall it. I do know they came into first aid to check on their friend, but that's the extent of my recollection there.
Okay, and did they stay with Terry the whole time he was there?
No, after, and I don't know how long, everybody went back out skiing and one went to go get the car.
Okay, and left Terry with you alone?
Correct.
Okay. And then there's another sentence here that seems like similar things you've said before. I recall LMF or Craig reiterating to the group his identification of the woman to have been Gwyneth Paltrow. Do you see that?
I do.
Saying it
And
again.
When you
More
write
people.
his identification of the woman, does that mean that it was your understanding that he personally identified the person as Miss Paltrow?
That was, yes. I guess I probably made the assumption that it was a site thing and that's what he had come up with.
Okay. And then eventually Debbie,
I'm
who
just
had left
counting
to
levels of
retrieve the car,
hearsay in
came
my
back
mind
and
is
came
all I'm
to you.
doing.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then
What?
at the bottom, you identify.
I'm just counting
LMF
levels
as
of
Craig.
hearsay
It
in
came
my
back to
mind.
me, yes.
Okay. When you say it came back, you couldn't remember his name at the
Craig
start,
said-
but then later
Ed
remembered
said
it
that
Correct.
Paul said
as you were writing
wrote a
out and
report.
bringing these memories
I'll
back.
tell you about
Yes.
that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that his ribs, or let me I'll ask it this way, were his ribs his chief complaint?
Yes.
And he did not offer any indication to you of a head injury?
No.
Oh, whoops. I have just one last thing I want to look at, and then I think we're done.
Oh.
So dizziness, loss of balance, did you observe anything like that?
No, I was monitoring for those things and didn't see them.
Blurred vision?
No.
Ringing in the ears?
No.
Sensitivity to light?
No.
Sensitivity to sound?
No.
Mood changes?
Not that I observed.
Was he dazed or confused?
No.
You talk about headache?
No.
Nausea?
No.
Vomiting?
No.
Fatigue?
I don't know if I asked him about that one.
Okay.
So not that I recall there.
Okay, got it. Any speech problems?
Not that I noticed.
And the jury has seen a picture of you before.
Okay.
Sorry to inform you. We have been talking about you already.
Okay.
And do you remember Mr.
Why does that
Sanderson
feel
taking
awkward
a
the way that he
It
said that?
feels
picture
creepy.
of you
Yes.
during
a little
that
bit,
first
like
date?
we have been talking
Yes, while we were at
about it.
Empire First Aid.
Yeah, and did you know
I mean, he's
at
married.
any
so
time was he on his
you know.
phone and making a post about that picture?
So I don't think they're
I'm not
flirting.
sure. I don't recall.
Did you help him put together a post at all?
No.
Okay. Did you check his eyes carefully?
I did, yes. We assessed
that's
for
you and Lena.
basically pupil reactivity if when you shine a light, if they're constricting and then dilating back out again.
Okay, and you remember doing that?
His were equal and reactive.
Okay, and that what does that tell you if they're equal and reactive?
It's just another test to see if potentially there is a brain bleed mostly.
Okay, got it. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. Bueller?
His name is really Mr. Bueller. I'm so sorry
Yeah.
for this guy. Wow.
I know. I'm sure he gets the Bueller routine all the time.
I changed my
I think
name.
the
I'm
plaintiff's
Mueller. It's already too
defense
close.
exhibit of your report, the little bit clearer. The one we have is a little less clear on page 3. What was that exhibit number for defendant?
Which part of it? The first page.
Is it each one a separate exhibit?
Yeah, 26. It's around. So 24A is the first page of the incident.
B, C.
Yeah, there it goes slightly
Yeah,
out
this
of order.
this witness
The
is, in
supplemental
my
report
opinion,
is 25B.
the
Yeah,
most
that's
credible
what-
so far.
That's what you're looking for.
She's just super straightforward, has zero interest in anything in any way.
Are you qualified to diagnose TBI or brain injury?
No, I do not diagnose.
You noted on your report that there was under assessment, the first thing you wrote was mild disorientation, correct?
Correct.
And then rib pain right side, correct?
Correct.
And then transport via toboggan to EFA, that's Empire First Aid.
It is.
Then reassessment, disorientation lessened, but the disorientation was still apparent at the first aid station, right?
Not by the time Mr. Sanderson left, no.
But before, when he got there at the first aid station, he had mild disorientation.
I do not recall that being down there.
Okay. And you did not believe Craig Ramon, the large male friend, LMF, when he told you or told in your presence that it was Gwyneth Paltrow who had hit Terry from behind?
It seemed like sort of an unbelievable statement at the time.
Kind of like that man appeared on the scene, that strange?
Similar.
Okay. And it was the supervisor that asked you to write that report that you hand wrote 3 weeks later, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There is a question about the accuracy of
Was
her memory.
Terry
at that point.
Sanderson very appreciative of your assistance that day?
Yes, I remember him being very kind.
Yeah. Do you understand he still is very appreciative of what you did?
I'm glad. Glad I
That's-
could help him.
Who cares?
Okay.
It's cross-examination.
You said he was rattled on the hill.
Yes.
What does rattle? Well, does rattle mean disorientation?
That is my version of it, yes. That is how I would present
That's
that.
what rattle means. Yes, we all know that.
So is
Go on.
rattled or disorientation, is that a possible sign of a concussion?
Not in the way that I was presenting it, but I can see how it could come off that way.
Is it possible he could have had a concussion because he was rattled and disoriented?
It's my tests, we were coming out with no, but again, I don't
Interesting.
diagnose. So down the line, someone else could come up with something different.
Someone who's qualified to diagnose a concussion?
Her answers are great.
Okay, and you're not qualified to diagnose a concussion?
I do not diagnose.
Already said
No,
that
she doesn't.
Okay.
multiple
You
times.
encouraged Terry Sanderson to go to the clinic, correct?
I did.
I feel like that would be a requirement,
Can you, let's
like
see.
a policy requirement.
So your main goal was to stabilize him and focus on him. You did not investigate the collision matters, even though Craig Ramon said it was Gwyneth Paltrow who hit him from
He
behind.
didn't care.
I did not chase that down, no.
You did not believe Craig Ramon.
She
When I
didn't
come up on a
care.
collision that one party is gone from, I'm not going to go try and find that person. It's pretty impossible.
Yeah.
Unless it's
How
someone
would
famous.
It could be, but it's sort of a hearsay thing at that point.
Also, she doesn't care. It's not her job. Her job is to
Yeah.
stabilize the guy. She could give two shits
Exactly.
what happened. She
Exactly.
just wants to fix the problem.
Exactly. Imagine like someone like her just skiing all
you,
over the
listeners.
mountains
That's all
to
I-
try to find Gwyneth Paltrow.
I didn't care if he was hit by Gwyneth Paltrow or a bear. I didn't care. I was there to stabilize him. That was what I was there for.
Sure.
Ms. Smith, there was a question about you being asked to write those additional comments. Do you recall that?
I do.
Did you write those with any intention of covering up anything that you knew about this accident?
No.
Or covering for Ms. Paltrow because she's a celebrity?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Super
Mr.
quick.
Bueller?
Wait, really?
Why?
Come on, man.
No.
You do not need to.
Just the opposite question. When you wrote those comments, you were trying to reveal that Ms. Paltrow was involved in this.
What?
At least her
What?
name was mentioned, right?
I was just writing down what I recalled.
Okay, thank you.
Completely ineffective
that's all.
way.
Okay. You're excused, but you may need to be called
Yeah.
back again. So please don't discuss the case with anyone and don't watch the proceedings.
I think she's
Thank you.
the
He comes
strongest
off as
witness so
extremely
far.
credible. I came upon the
100%.
scene. There was a guy that was injured.
And I
He
think
seemed
he's
a
out
little
there, so we'll
dazed
have
and
to go grab
disoriented,
him.
as
Sure.
one would be in that situation. I ferried him off to the place for further treatment. By that time, he seemed normal. I observed him for 2 hours. He seemed fine.
Yeah.
I offered him to get him more care. He declined.
Yeah.
I mean,
based on my testing of it, I didn't think that he had a concussion, but I don't diagnose. So if somebody, with qualifications to diagnose said that he had a concussion, like,
Good afternoon, Mr. Graff.
that's
If you could
fine.
walk right up here and be sworn in as a witness.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in the case now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then take a seat in the witness stand and then begin by, I guess, positioning the microphone and then stating and spelling your name.
I'm Steve Graff, Graff.
Thank you.
Your Honor, as we walked in, the witness told me that he is thirsty. Do you mind if I give him a drink?
Yeah, please do.
oh Lord.
Thank you.
I got it.
An expert in something?
All right, Mr. Graff. Thank you for being here. We don't have much time, so you'll be quick. I first want to ask you whether you know about a man named Mr. Sanderson, Terry Sanderson.
I do.
And how do you know about him?
I know he was involved in a ski accident at Deer Valley in February of 16, and he has subsequently filed suit against originally Deer Valley and Gwyneth Paltrow.
And how do you know about this?
Well, I know about the accident beginning the day of the accident and been involved in it off and on for the last 6 years.
Okay. And in what capacity did you learn about this accident in terms of professional life?
Who are
Well,
you?
my professional life, the day of the accident, I spoke with Whitney Smith about it at the end of the day.
Who are
Okay.
you?
About the accident.
Are you a
And
manager?
what did
Do
you
own
learn
the
from her? What was
place?
your understanding
Yeah.
from your conversation with her?
Medical
It was just
personnel?
end of the day work in the ski patrol room as the patrol comes in. I'm usually around that area. So if they have questions about scheduling, just talk about the day, any of those type of things. And she was in the Empire First Aid Room for an extra long period of time. So questioned about that. And she said, yeah, the crazy thing is there was somebody there that said that Gwyneth Paltrow was involved.
Okay. Anything else that you understood
Who
from your interactions
are
with her?
you?
That was the end of any
Why do you
interactions
matter?
with that for a number of days.
Okay. With end of the interactions with Miss Smith.
Yes.
And what was your role, your job at Deer Valley at that time?
At that time, I was the ski patrol manager for Deer Valley.
Ah,
Yay!
So you managed all
we got there.
Miss Smith and her colleagues, making sure that they're
Okay.
organized, running the various runs so that they can help people that may be in trouble. Is that a good sort of layperson's
That's a pretty
description?
good description. If there were 70 ski patrollers, managed staffing 6 different mountains,
Ooh.
number of different ski patrol stations, first aid
I would
rooms,
imagine
things of
that's
that
a
nature on a
lot.
daily basis.
To manage.
And so after that assessment, or sorry, I shouldn't say assessment. I was saying that a bunch with Miss Smith. That interaction with Miss Smith, did you have any other involvement in trying to determine what had happened in this collision?
Not that day, no. It wasn't until maybe a week to 10 days later that I saw a instructor comment form come in from Mr. Christiansen, and
Jansen.
he had
Why do they
been
pronounce it
with
that way?
Gwyneth Paltrow that day, and he had listed that she was involved in a collision. And so I reached back out to Whitney and said, hey, there might be some validity to that. Do you mind giving us some more information on that?
I see. Because at first it wasn't clear that the claim about Ms. Paltrow was in fact true. Is that correct?
No, it was reported to me as just somebody in the background saying, beautiful blonde woman at Deer Valley must be Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay, got it. And did you do anything further to try and figure out if anybody else on the mountain, Deer Valley employees knew anything about the collision?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. Did you do anything later?
Yes.
And when was that?
Well, a lot of things happened. So chronologically, in the interest of time, I'll just kind of quickly go through how these things transpired as far as I'm aware. So I mentioned that, week, 10 days after the accident, noticed that there was an instructor comment card, verified that Gwyneth was there, asked Whitney to follow up on that, maybe a few more statements about what happened that day to add to her incident form. And then nothing for maybe a month or so. Sometime, March, April, I believe, John Gay, the director of skier services, received a letter from Mr. Sanderson. And in the letter, if I remember correctly, he was concerned that the skier responsibility code wasn't being applied evenly because of Ms. Paltrow's celebrity status. And he didn't mention in the letter to John, the director of skier services, that his employee yelled at him or anything like that in that particular letter. There was another follow-up letter, similar content, weeks after that one. And then there was a request for the contact information for Ms. Paltrow. And when we first got that request, we complied. How it typically goes, and it didn't go any differently in this case, is that we reached out to Ms. Paltrow and said, Mr. Sanderson has requested your information. We're giving it to him. We reached out to Mr. Sanderson, said, here's Gwyneth's information. We're giving it to her, as we would with any other case.
Got it. I see. And
That was how they got the information.
what about
Switched.
any attempts to find,
Turned
well,
over.
I should back up and ask you some foundational questions. In learning about this incident, did you ever hear about any ski patrollers coming on the scene of the actual collision?
Yeah, that was later that we started digging more into that. We supplied that information. It wasn't until 2019, I believe, when we were served, and we really started digging into what had happened and getting statements from people and depositions and all of that. And through that process, we dug a lot deeper into, I believe it was Chris Jansen that said a ski patroller came by the scene while they were still there and everybody was present or mostly present. And so we looked into that, and there were two potential people that matched the description. I believe one of them was on Empire, one of them was on Flagstaff.
I would kind of
Bandana Ski Run connects both of them.
For a big resort.
We reached out to both of those. They didn't recollect
Ski patrol's pretty important.
skiing by and asking anybody if they needed help. But that's not unusual. That, any given day, it's probably more unusual on a ski run that I don't ask somebody if they're okay. It's just very common occurrence. You go, you see someone standing there, someone looking at a map, someone picking themselves up. It's very common to say, are you okay? And yep, everything's okay. And then moving on. And there's no documentation of that. It's just routine business.
I see. And were there patrol logs that were connected with this? I think the jury has heard some description of logs that are kept about who's on which run in terms of the patrol people. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. There's logs on every mountain, and not every run is logged, but if a ski patroller goes down a run, they come back. They're like, yep, I did Bandana at 11:24. And they would write that down and put their initials on that.
Got it. I believe I have those logs, which are Defendants Exhibit 26A and through C. And I don't believe that we have published these, so I would ask for permission to publish these and admit them.
And how are they been marked for identification?
Defendants Exhibit 26A through C.
Through C?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection?
Just a second, Your Honor. Didn't need to find it.
Here, we see, I think this, that's for the member control line. No objection.
26A through C, defense exhibit is received.
Okay, so I'll publish it. It should be on that screen for you, Mr. Graff. Do you see it?
I do now.
Okay, is that the log we're talking about?
Yes, this is the Flagstaff patrol log. This isn't the section I'm talking about. It's a 2-page log.
Okay, so
this is it. This is the
26B. Is that the log, or do I have to keep going?
So this would be the run log. So you see where it says opening run, run check. Obviously, a lot more runs are done than that. Ski patrollers typically do more than a couple runs a day. But they're trying to make sure that all the runs get checked. So on this particular one, and as it pertains to this, we're looking for Bandana. And it's at the very top. And
here at the top.
Yep.
I
and
see.
it looks like 11:40, and then there's another time and a couple initials in there.
Okay, got it. And then just for the sake of completeness, then there's 26C. I don't know if that makes a difference here to you. Was that part of your, was this record a part of your attempt to figure out who those patrollers were?
Yes, this was part of us trying to get all the information we could about this.
And this 26C document, does it offer anything additional?
If you
zoom
in, zoom out. Yeah. So this is sweep. So that's after the accident. So it doesn't offer anything additional there. The page that you showed previously has names of the people that were on the mountain that day.
Is that this page?
That's this page, correct.
I see.
So at the top there.
At the top here. Okay.
Yep. So Caleb, Jess, Whitney, and Tom were there. Steve Campbell was the snowmobiler.
And
if I remember correctly, I asked Tom specifically because I saw his initials in that log. But not only did I look at Flagstaff, but knowing that Bandana is a connecting run to Lady Morgan and Empire, we looked at those patrollers as well and asked them if anybody on the mountain that day recalls saying, "Are you okay?" to some people on Bandana. And we didn't get any affirmative response to that.
Given your experience with managing patrollers and responding to various incidents, if there had been an incident where someone was unconscious for a long time, would you expect to have heard about it?
Yes, most definitely.
And would you expect those patrollers to remember it if you asked them a number of years later?
Yes.
And they did not?
They did not.
In this case? Okay.
Even if the person wasn't necessarily injured, but wanted a ride or had an equipment problem, or if there was anything other than "no, I'm okay," it most likely would have ended up in this log.
I see. And it does not. You've reviewed these, and you don't see any. You don't see any indication of any such event.
No.
Okay. And do you know who Eric Christensen is? I think you mentioned him earlier.
I do know who Eric Christensen is.
And did you ever receive a report that he had yelled at Mr. Sanderson?
I believe that was in one of the claims in the lawsuit, but never in our investigation.
Okay, so you had heard about it in terms of claims in a lawsuit, but never aside from that.
Cover up.
Never since, no.
Part of this corporate cover up.
There wasn't a patroller that said, "Hey, we need to respond to Mr. Christensen. He's not treating our customers properly."
Right. In our investigation of all of our employees that were involved or could have been involved, that's never come up. That question, that no one ever said yes, that there was yelling or even raised voices. Or
and if that had been reported, how do you respond to those things? How do you investigate an incident like that, maybe discipline employees?
Yeah, I've been a leader and manager of employees for nearly 30 years now. And if any one of my employees verbally assaulted a guest or yelled at them or behaved in any way that was inappropriate, we would definitely take action with that.
And no action was taken against Mr. Christensen?
No action was taken, no.
And I understand, if I'm correct, you're no longer in that patrol manager position, is that right?
That's right. I was the ski patrol manager, and in 2017, I became the director of mountain operations. And in 2022, I'm the vice president of mountain operations.
Okay, so is it fair to say you're familiar with how Deer Valley responds to employees that have, that misbehave or that engage in behavior that is inappropriate towards guests?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. And then what about, are you aware of how Deer Valley deals with celebrities on the ski slopes?
I am aware of how Deer Valley deals with celebrities on the ski slopes.
And how is that? Do they treat them any differently than other people?
No. We don't. There's no reason for Deer Valley as a company, and broadly tell our employees about when celebrities are at Deer Valley. The only time in my 29 years or so at Deer Valley that I've known about celebrities is when we think there might be some disruption to our business, right? Like paparazzi or things of that nature. I can only think of 2 instances in that time frame that there was a reason why we would want some of our employees to know about celebrities being on
Paltrow's
them.
friendship with Taylor Swift.
If it was, heads of state or members of Congress or sitting presidents or past presidents, with security details, we're usually informed of those things, but not celebrities.
To your knowledge, did Deer Valley
I think the Secret Service would definitely give you a heads up.
Executives, anyone involved with Deer Valley, do anything to cover up the facts of this case to protect Gwyneth Paltrow?
Absolutely not.
And were you even aware that Ms. Paltrow was on the slopes that day?
I wasn't aware of it until I read the instructor comments that just happened to mention that my student was Gwyneth Paltrow and was involved in a collision. And I recalled that, hey, Whitney was on an accident a week or so ago, and there was somebody there that said the same thing. So that's when those 2 pieces came together for me.
And does Deer Valley have any position on what occurred in terms of the collision, who hit who?
No, there's with the varying statements, there's different statements about what happened. And so we as a company don't have a position on who's at fault.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Egan.
Short cross-examination, or are we done for the day?
Mr. Sykes?
Okay, I guess we are.
Is
going
it
to-
because you buried the information about Gwyneth Paltrow that you were promoted? Isn't that the truth? Covering your company's ass.
He's still coughing, Mr. Sykes. Sheesh.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Mr. Sykes.
We know each other from other cases, don't we?
We know each other, yes.
Excuse me.
That's interesting.
This is the log that was referred to a minute ago, 26A. Can you see it there?
I do.
9:58 a.m. skier assist. What was that next word? Can you read that?
Well, knowing that it was on Flagstaff Mountain, I'm going to say it's Sidewinder.
Okay.
Sidewinder is a run there.
Next one is 10:36 lost something boot. Is that right?
It says lost boulder, bad boot.
Yeah.
So goes back to what I was saying
a skier
before.
has a bad boot on, was it Bandana?
It's actually pronounced
That would be
bananas.
lost boulder, bad boot.
Okay, lost boulder, a bad boot, and that gets logged in,
Correct.
right? And a skier collision on Bandana doesn't merit a login at, let's say, 11:55 a.m.
Yeah,
A collision doesn't even mention
the witness
mention?
looks like actor.
Yeah, that
Steve
goes back to what I said before, that if it was equipment like bad boot or somebody needed an assist, like maybe they needed a ride down, it would get logged. But if the people said, I'm okay, it wouldn't.
Okay, at 12:02 p.m. now, Whitney Smith, it says Whitney there, is, and a possible 1050 is a collision, right?
Possible 1050 is an accident.
An accident, okay. And Bandana, okay? And she notes skier collision, disorientation.
Correct.
Now, you investigate these things for Deer Valley. Is it your position that maybe 7 minutes, just 7 minutes or so, after that collision, he's disoriented, but at the time of the collision, he's not disoriented? Is that your position?
I don't have a position on that.
Well, take one. I mean, 5 or 7 minutes later, Whitney Smith, who has no skin in the game except she's employed by you, okay, notes disorientation on her report. And she noticed it later, by the way, as you noticed.
Right.
And you're trying to tell this jury that just 7 minutes before, this individual wasn't disoriented?
Is there a question there?
Yeah.
What's the question?
Are you trying to tell the jury that 7 minutes before, Terry Sanderson wasn't disoriented when the other two guys stopped by,
Your Honor, maybe.
who didn't log it?
He wasn't.
I wasn't
there,
trying to tell
though.
the jury anything.
Got a request. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
like
my gosh.
he wasn't there.
Yeah, he didn't actually like see Terry,
Are
right?
you trying to tell this jury he wasn't disoriented? What are you talking about?
Right. Like what? Like how can he answer the questions that you're asking?
Yeah.
Does not compute. We might be soon out of time because they keep pretty closely to 5 p.m.
You may proceed, Mr. Sykes.
I'm sending you a picture
Do you remember the question?
in private chat.
No.
Okay. Are you telling this jury of the good men and women of Summit County that maybe 5 to 7 minutes after this collision, it's noted here, I assume by Whitney Smith or someone noted it, that there was a collision and there was disorientation, and that 5 to 7 minutes before that there was no disorientation? Is that what you're saying?
I feel like that could happen.
I'm not saying that. On this form at 12:04, Whitney said there was a skier collision and the person presented with disorientation. I don't know where you're getting the 5 to 7 minutes earlier. What are you referring to?
Well, the accident was logged, the crash was logged at 11:55.
By who?
Well, it's in one of the records. I think it was Eric Christensen. 11:55.
Maybe you should have asked them about this.
You weren't aware of that?
Why didn't you ask him
There's a
about
time
that?
frame there. I know that at 12:02, Whitney was dispatched, and I don't see the screen anymore, but I believe it was 12:04. She was on scene.
Well. Okay.
So Chris Jansen said he was on scene. Yeah, that was right.
11:55.
5 minutes before then, and he didn't
Yeah.
notice disorientation.
All right. And your
Pointless
no.
question.
Have you ever had a broken rib?
Yes,
It's pretty painful, isn't it?
incredibly.
Very painful, incredibly painful. Have you ever had 4 broken ribs? 4.
Another ineffective cross.
Okay. Terry was diagnosed at the VA with 4 broken ribs the very next day. Okay? Now, is it reasonable, and you've had a long history in skiing and with Deer Valley, long illustrious history, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that a man who just had 4 broken ribs, 4, okay,
What are you doing?
would tell a ski patrol guy who came by that he was okay? Is that reasonable to you?
That is
Yes,
apparently
that's
what
reasonable.
happened.
4 broken ribs.
I've seen that happen over
Okay.
and over again.
Over and over again, people with 4 broken ribs tell a ski patrol that they're okay.
Maybe not with 4 broken ribs, but quite frequently people say they're okay. They want to be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you,
What kind of a stupid question is
could
that?
you find the,
There's a lot of stupid questions in this cross-examination right now. I'm just,
which is the 3? Okay.
Is it
now,
reasonable with four broken ribs?
you didn't see the crash, did you?
No, I did not.
And you have no personal knowledge of how serious it was.
No, I don't.
You're aware that Terry Sanderson has a witness who's not even a close friend, just a meetup buddy, that
Geez.
says
really discarding Fred
that
Ramon here.
Gwyneth Paltrow hit him in the back. You aware of that?
I'm aware of that. Yes.
Okay. Does that count for anything in your opinion?
It's part of all of this, part
Right.
of this investigation.
Deer Valley, however, takes no position one way or the other on how the collision occurred.
No, there's differing opinions or statements on what happened.
But
That
Deer Valley takes no position.
we don't take any position, no.
And you don't give celebrities any advantage.
No.
Okay, now, you aware that she paid almost $9,000 for 2 days of skiing? You aware of that?
I believe I saw that somewhere in the records. I think it might be overly inflated, but somewhere in there. It
cares?
doesn't sound
That's what she said.
unreasonable.
Okay. Now, that's a lot of money
What
to pay
difference
for
does it
2 days,
make?
isn't it?
It's
All right.
Deer Valley costs a lot of money.
Mr. Sykes, I hate to interrupt you, but we can either recess now, or if you just have a few minutes
If it
of
was
questioning.
$5
you
or
could finish.
$5,000, who
Well-
cares?
Yeah,
I hate to hold the jury late. Why don't we recess and I'll finish tomorrow?
All right.
Is that okay?
please.
objection to finishing tomorrow.
Why don't we address that at after the jury's excused?
Thank you.
Members of the jury, we're going to recess now until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So remember my admonition not to talk about the case with anyone, not to do any of your own investigation. And if you happen to look at the television or listen to the radio
Yeah, I
or
don't-
go online, please avoid reading anything or listening to anything about the case. So thank you. Hopefully we won't have a storm in the morning.
Yeah, this cross-examination of this witness is like, there's just so much, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares?
Doesn't the meetup buddy statement count for anything?
Thank you. You can step down.
heartless organization?
Mr. Owens?
I excuse my client.
Yes. Did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yes, thank you. Your Honor, the plaintiffs still have not rested. That was supposed to take place Friday at the end of the day. I had Apple Martin, Moses Martin, and Brad Falchuk all ready to go this morning, and they were unable to testify. As I understand it, plaintiffs will not oppose Apple and Moses having their deposition transcripts read into the evidence. Can we confirm?
Mr. Sykes?
That's correct, as long as our additions are added, which I've given counsel.
Thank you. And Brad Falchuk is still, we still haven't made a decision. We may need to read his transcript in too. We have 2 full days tomorrow.
The court hasn't made a decision about what?
Oh, sorry. Brad Falchuk is the husband. with me.
And what decision do I need to make about that?
I'm sorry. We,
You need to make a decision. Okay.
I'm speaking through a mask, which makes it hard. Tomorrow, Tuesday, can I give my lineup?
What's the lineup for
Sure.
tomorrow?
McMahon.
Oh, you're giving the lineup. You're giving the lineup. Okay, go ahead.
I'm starting with, finish up Mr.
Graff.
With a nod.
My,
Is he available?
my objection to, we're already terribly behind.
Just a minute. Mr. Graff in the room here? Maybe you better run out and grab him and make sure he's going to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Somebody from the plaintiff's side.
So 4 of our witnesses have been thrown off, just to let you know, because we had 7 planned for today.
And
We
that's
can't
your choice,
have it.
counsel, to throw them off. So each side gets 50% of the trial time, and you're making a decision about how to allocate that time.
Based on the assumption that plaintiffs would be done on Friday.
And that's between the two of you.
Okay, I'm not complaining, I'm just putting this on
Yes,
the
you are.
record. And so
very
we
much
have
complaining.
8 experts, 4 tomorrow, most out of state, 4 on Wednesday. So we're lumping in now people onto Thursday morning. Anyway,
You see that I've got in the time for Thursday morning, it's 2 hours and 7.75, 2.75 hours or something like that. That includes
He also
closing
believes in the
arguments.
chess clock.
wow, that means 0.75 hours. Well, Tuesday morning or Thursday morning.
It's just an estimate of what's available. If we take up a lot of time in out of jury hearings, that'll
Yeah,
get
you guys
smaller.
keep
And you're running an
Your
excellent
sidebar.
court. But I'm just saying an hour for closing on both sides means essentially no evidence on Thursday morning.
Well, you can start your closings earlier than
Chess
that.
clock,
It just depends
chess
on when you
clock, chess
rest your
clock.
case and when the plaintiff rests their case. But your half time includes your closing argument.
See, thank you
Yeah.
for telling me that. I hadn't focused on that. So you
Includes
envision the
everything.
jury
That's the nature of
commencing deliberations at about noon?
That would be in a perfect world.
Okay.
And I understand, we don't live in a perfect world. And so if they have to be charged a little bit later than that, they have to be charged a little bit later than that.
Thank you.
But that would be in a perfect world.
All right. So my concern, sorry to be so long on this. We have Michael McMahon, a physician assistant, Paul Bogger, our ski expert, Irvin Shear, our biomechanical expert, and Stephen Edgley, our neuro rehabilitation expert. They are not flexible. So my concern with having Steve Graff come back tomorrow morning is that it's going to throw off these folks that are not flexible.
Okay.
I would rather Steve Graff come back, for instance, Thursday morning, so that we can get our experts who are time.
Sure. So
Thanks.
you've got an expert that's ready to go at 9 a.m. in the morning?
So Michael McMahon is actually not our expert, so I may have misspoken. He was the treating physician assistant at the Instacare.
Sure.
And he is,
Ready at 9 a.m.?
yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, Your Honor, I'll probably only have about 10 to 12 minutes to finish this up.
Oh, it'll be at
Why
least
don't we
20.
Wait, but I'd rather just get it done.
I realize that, but we do have some professionals that we need to make some accommodation for. And so why don't we wait with completing Mr. Graff's testimony until we can fit it in sometime
It's
a little bit
just-
later?
Oh, this
Maybe
is what I
later
meant.
tomorrow, or if you want
We haven't
to
finished
schedule him for a
testimony.
specific
Now they're
time,
not finishing Graff's
we can do that
testimony.
as well.
Steve Graff has flexibility to show up anytime.
I don't know.
He's not.
I don't
it's only
control
the
Steve
best
Graff.
snow season in the world. This year of Salt Lake City, but
And I would add that Michael McMahon doesn't remember the treating Terry Sanderson. It's just a record review, and there's very little he would have to offer because he has no recollection of ever seeing the plaintiff.
I think he will be short.
So why don't you speak with counsel for Deer Valley and find out when you can schedule Mr. Graff? When makes sense to schedule him? Can you give him some blocks of time when he could schedule that?
Yes, I mean, so if we can hold them to 10 minutes, we can live with it.
In the
What we
morning?
can't-
I feel like
Tomorrow
as a
morning?
judge, I
Yes.
don't know any of
What
these
we can't
things.
live with is
I just want
it's
to do the
10
judge
minutes
ask
and
karate
now it's
move. It's like, here's
2
much time,
hours.
how much time you have left,
do another
respective
10 or
sides.
15
I don't need
of
to know any of
regret?
these things. You figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
James is
yeah.
on it.
Probably not.
You better call someone
I
at
will-
9:30 in the morning. I don't really
All
care.
right, then
how.
we'll call him in the morning.
Mr. Graff did say that he's available.
Okay, so why don't we get him back in the morning, and we'll even try,
Such
we'll
a
start as
hot
soon
mess.
as the jury's here. If they're all assembled at 10:02, we'll start.
And Judge, just for the record, I've been in lots of trials, lots of jury trials. I've never seen so many sidebars in a case as this one.
He
That's
did
not
that
somebody
complaint so much.
Is that a compliment or a criticism?
It's the whiniest.
You're working very hard, Judge.
I've got to
Thanks.
leave. in
Anything else,
about,
counsel?
Thank you, Judge.
All right, so
Thank you,
come
Judge.
early.
15 minutes, by
The
the
jury has been asked to be here at 8:45. If they're all assembled, we'll start.
Okay.
8:45?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's start it then.
Okay.
Thank you.
8:45
Thank you.
tomorrow. All right. Man.
This is what top legal talent looks like when you're paying top dollar. Is that what it
I
looks
just
like?
I can't believe that they have two witnesses who have started but not finished their testimony at this point.
Yeah.
I cannot with that. I don't understand.
No.
And they're for both sides too. Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
This is a mess of trial management.
yeah.
Judge Escarati's looking better and
exactly.
better all the time with her marine-like ways of the time. I appreciate her more and more.
I know. I started out like really liking this judge, and especially like even earlier today, I said I was like, yeah, I really like this judge. Now I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know, man. This is kind of in his wheelhouse is to make sure that things are moving properly. Sandra Ramirez, thanks so much for the super chat. Says, I feel bad for begging you to live stream now. I forget your time zone is vastly different. That's okay. That's okay. This is what I do for a living. Ellen, not Sarah Lee. Thanks for the super chat. Alita, could Terry's negligence to get prompt medical attention outside the ski patrol weigh into this? It would for damages, not for liability. In other words,
Yep.
So the question of like who hit whom and all that kind of stuff, like it's not relevant to that, but it would be relevant to how bad his injuries are, and so therefore how much he should be compensated for.
There's a
if
general duty to mitigate damages. And
Mhm.
so if he didn't mitigate damages by getting help that he needed and exasperated beyond the damage that would have been caused had he got the help he needed, that's on him.
Yeah.
So
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
John O'Rourke, thanks for the super chat. I'm kind of confused. Can you dudes and dudettes explain the time? Thanks, Bites and Kurt. Witnesses and closing time. So it's going to be it's going to start 15 minutes earlier than it did today. And then it has been starting. So
Yeah.
so if
This
if
judge
you're
seems
if
to
you're
have
East
like
Coast,
seems to have like a clock like Judge Escarati did. Same idea. It's like
Mhm.
50 times it's been pre-allocated. So he's going over, well, this is how much time you have left. And they're like, oh no, that would mean we'd only have this much time for closing argument. And be like, I didn't realize that my closing arguments was part of the time. What the hell? What are you talking about?
I'm wondering
Lord.
if this is his first trial because he's done some weird things. Like I remember with the first witness with Craig Ramon, his impeachment was weird because he brought up his deposition transcript and then he put it in front of Craig Ramon to read part of it, which is just, it never goes smoothly. Like when you're impeaching a witness, it's like there's this idea that you get the witness to say it themselves because then you hear it in their voice. But that's all well and good, but usually they fumble that either because they're trying to be difficult or because they just aren't used to reading it or you didn't communicate properly. Like where you want them to read. There's so many ways that can go totally haywire, and it did in that case. That was just like one example that I was like, what are you just read it and then ask him the damn question, did I read that right? Anyway, So
I feel you.
fun times.
Well,
Yeah,
Ski Patrol lady is by far and away the best witness so far in terms of like just her
I think so.
credibility of everything. And I believe her.
I think she's been the best. Yeah. No, me too. Me too. I have zero reason to doubt her. I will say her and Carlene Davidson, the ex-girlfriend, like I thought her testimony was like the most credible out of the family and friends and intimates that testified. Because she was like very honest. She was like volunteering information that was like maybe not the best for the plaintiff's side. But yeah. Yeah, I think Ski Patrol, Miss Ski Patrol was is the best so far. I see member chat in the chat. John Overrook says, how much time is left? 2.75 hours. Confused. Thanks. Oh, I don't know. I have not been keeping track of the time for either side. I mean, my assumption is that every time there's a direct examination versus a cross examination, it's whichever side is asking the questions is the one whose time is getting chipped away. So, yeah. Man, oh man. My opinion is still the same that it was this morning. I think Gwyneth Paltrow is winning this case, if for no other reason other than we're just in the muddy middle. Like I don't feel like I've gotten really any clarity one way or another as to what happened with who hit whom and all that kind of.
I could
don't
also
know.
see them coming back with an award that's just like nominal, like they rule for him, but give him basically nothing for it. Like here's $1,000, or something like that. Ridiculous. Just like
like sorry, we feel bad for you, and then but we're not going to make her give you money.
Yeah, have $1 pay you right now. That kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't find his story credible. There's no particular reason to believe it, and the damages also seem very non-believable, and especially with how many lawyers does this plaintiff need? I don't know. Not that complicated a case. You think it could be? You think this would be You think this could be a one-man show kind of case? A single lawyer could do this.
It's best to have a second chair. I think best to have.
Sure.
I mean, because then you've got somebody. You've got somebody covering for you when you're up there. But I think that the reason why there are so many lawyers on that side, I think the reason for that is because it's televised. Like so many of them on that side, they seem like they're so interested in just having their viral moment in the courtroom. And like,
I wish it was going better for that purpose.
What's that?
I said, I wish it was going better for that purpose, that they were the breakout star and it was, going to rise them to fame and fortune. But, yeah.
But the irony of it is that there is a breakout lawyer here, and it's the person that isn't doing any of that nonsense. And that's James Egan, Clark Kent. He's like the only one that I've watched that I'm like, yeah, no, you've got a solid performance here, which of course
you need a little polish. You get better.
Sure. But he's doing a solid job though, overall. And I will say, we are commenting. We're not the ones actually in the ring. So, take the opinions for what they are. Definitely not the be all end all of trial advocacy and what makes a good trial lawyer for sure. But, just our thoughts from calling balls and strikes. But okay, well, any last thoughts for the day?
Not really. I've enjoyed it. I got to go because I have improv class. I'm doing improv classes again after a 3-year hiatus. I'm very excited about that. So going to do that and learn all the fun skills of improv comedy. Exciting.
That's awesome. That should be super fun. All righty. And I am going to probably go straight to bed. All right. I will see you guys in the next video.